in the war that
It's your boy Young Love, I give him that thing. Control leg stand and punch it America. Punch it door, the banaban. Control leg stand and punch it America. Punch it door, the banaban. Walk on your leg, kankaro what on a watching. Koga level leg, gear, pow, garay leg. Panda with ya, punch it America. Panya Dwalabano, Chingatonga Pandon, could you ever buy a check out? Papu Panda Jiro, what ya be Dwalabanting. Stand up and cheat America, Banji Dwall, Banaban, Punta Leg stand up and cheat America, Banji Dwall, Banaban, walk on your leg, Kankaro, what on a watching, Koga level leg, gear, pow, leg, Panda with ya, Panchid America, Panya Dwalabano, Chingatonga Pandon, could you ever buy a check out, Paku Panda Jiro, what ya be Dwalabanting.
Circulating
a lie. You are a pastor. You don't have to lie. You know.
Well, there are some in writing, Zol Kabir.
It's a curse. You know, if you don't have to lie, you know that the Bible doesn't say that.
Oh, can I finish?
Why you lie? You know.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me finish talking. I'm concerned about our ordinary citizen. So, if people say that there are people coming along the river to rescue Riek Machar, this is my message to our fishermen, so that they could stop bringing fish to Juba, because they will be mistaken. They will be mistaken for people coming to rescue somebody, and they will be killed for no reason. That's my message to people whose life is based on fishing. We have people whom are now fishermen, and they bring food, they bring fish to Juba on a daily basis. That's a message I want to put across. I'm saying what I heard. Okay? People are talking, and I'm the one that's running as presidential candidate. People tell me their messages, and I'm not keeping them. This is an awareness. Let's wait. What Salva going to say at 3 o'clock? That is the writing too. He has sent messages to all the presidents. Did you get the message from Dr. Riek? I have that. If you want it, I'll send it to you.
No,
okay.
We've got it. We've got the message. Now, listen to me. The president is ready now for 1 minute. You are just
okay.
Okay. Brother Paul Mator, if you finish, we'll let Brother Servan speak.
Okay. So my message is to the people to avoid the river transport, because if the people are saying that, that's another setup for failure for our ordinary citizen to die for no reason. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Before I sorry, can I correct Paul?
No, in a minute. Sorry, Brother Peter. No, Manish. But call the Brother Servan speak, and then you can speak after.
Thank you, Sister Flora. Thank you, everyone. أنا داير أقول كلام بسيط بس أنا ما داير كلام كثير. ده كلام بتاع برادر سلمون هو بيتكلم عن داير يعمل جاي للناس بتاع الحكومة with no you have information about the supporter of Akuma. But you have it right. There's something you're talking about what happened in peace agreement or what is wrong with the true leader in South Sudan. كلام ده أقول لك يا برادر سلم فيلمون طبعا السبورت بتاع الحكومة ما كل السبورت بتاع الحكومة قاعدين يعمل agree the way الحكومة قاعد يعمل implement the peace agreement 2018 و blaming the support بتاع الحكومة أو ناس واقفين مع الحكومة منكم كناس في المعارضة كلامكم ده ما صح. يعني المفروض تعرف إنه الطريقة الناس بيتكلموا بها تفهموا الناس بيتكلموا في شنو اللغات الناس بيتكلموا فيه. ما كلنا support بتاع الحكومة قاعدين يعمل agree the way President General Salva Kiir Mayardit الحكومة بتاع الجنوب قاعد يعمل تنفيذ لاتفاقية بتاع السلام 2018. نحن ما كلنا قاعد نعمل agree للكلام ده. عارفين إنه الحكومة بتاع الجنوب they have some issues big issues يعني هو فشل حقيقية لتنفيذ الاتفاقية بتاع 2018. وحاجة ما بزول بينكر إيبن حتى رئيس كير ميار في سبيت بتاعه هاي يتكلم فيه دي هتجي تسمع منه هاي يتكلم عن الموضوع بتاع تنفيذ الاتفاقية بتاع السلام. الراجل الموجود في الاتفاقية هو هيتكلم ده جزء من السبيت بتاعه هو هيتكلم فيه بعد شوية لما نتكلم في التكيبي. نمبر 2 ايشو بتعلق بحكومة بتاع جنوب السودان اللي هي ماسكة المسؤولية كامل في تنفيذ بتاع اتفاقية نفسه في سايد بتاع الحكومة هيتكلم في some issues هو هيتكلم فيه. نحن ما نقعد نسبق عوادي ونعمل blaming judgment without any reason. So كلام بتاعك يا brother نحن ما كلنا قاعد نتفق في حاجة الحكومة قاعد يعمله. لكن برضو انت عامل accept انه leader like دكتور رياض مشار he has some issues برضو that ما just بس سلفا كير ميارديت يعني التنفيذ بتاع الاتفاقية ده بيكون مسؤولية بتاع كل طرف الأطراف الموقعين في الاتفاقية دي. So في حاجات هناك sometimes السبورتر والمواطن الجنوبي ما بنلم بوجه دعاية القاعد يعكس المسائل اللي بتتعلق بالتنفيذ بتاع الاتفاقية ذاتها. ففي حاجات بيكون كامل جوا هناك يعني ما كل معلومات الناس بيعرفوها. So let's go نعمل accept على أساس إنه كلنا ما بنعمل agree عشان نرجع تاني للحرب. يهمنا أهم حاجة لنا نحن كشعب بتاع الجنوب سواء كان في حكومة أو في المعارضة إنه ينفذوا الاتفاقية سلام. ولنا حاجة إننا نسعى لو أسعى ابن حتى الناس قاعدين في جوبا هنا هم قاعدين يعملوا هنا طريق بتاع حلول فكر للحلول. واحتمال المؤتمر الصحفي الرئيسي هيجي ده جزء هيوري الناس هم وصلوا لوين لمشاكل هسه حاليا الفكشن البسيط عمل نفس 3 أيام المشي. سو كده ليتس جو. الكلام بتاع جايمن وبليمنج ده يخليه شويه كده ننظر للليدر بتاعنا. لما نجي للكلام بتاعك بشويه كلام ريفيو طبعا في مشكله كبير جدا. ناس بتاعت ايو عملوا انسحاب كل اللجان بتاعت ايو المشترك في الحكومه الوطنيه بمفهوم اللجان الامنيه ركنات بوسس عملوا انسحاب في كل اجتماعات المفروض يكونوا في اوكا كجزء منه. تو ما بس انه حكومه يعمل كله عندما تنفيذ بتاع اتفاق السلام. يا الحكومه ممكن ياخذ المسؤوليه بتسميات الناس بيقولوا انها حكومه ما عملوا لكن في حاجات هناك برضه قاعده فيها حكومه. في حاجات هناك يعني في نهايه العمليه دي بالذات يعني دي مشكله كبيره جدا. يعني الوقف تنفيذ البروتوكولات بتاع الاتفاقيه ده بتعلق بالماليه. والماليه ده كلنا عارفينه خلانا شغل هناك يبقى حتى في اي ووتر الليله بتاع ايو هو يعني مثلا عنده so many basic هناك الليدر بتاع ايو النظام بتاع الماليه والماليه ده الدكتور يعني نفسه عارف في عمال الشغل. بعدين ما تنسى الناس السبورتر بتاع البيس اجريمنت ده اللي هم المجتمع الدولي ذاته هم صاروا ما بتقول ليدر ما رياض مشار ما سلفا كير في ناس هناك برضه اطراف. كنا نتكلم حقائق يا جماعه. احنا ما دايرين بلد ثاني نرجع ثاني مشاكل. الشيء الواقع بقى حاجات قدامنا انه كيف ننفذ الاتفاقيه. ده المشكله. الحاجه الثانيه برضه زي الكلام فيه ده موضوع بتاع الكشن. ده جاب الجدل كبير جدا. يعني الناس ايوه بيقولوا ما ممكن يمشي الكشن without انه ينفذ الاتفاقيه بالشوكولاته بتاع الاتفاقيه. ده طبعا وجهه نظر بتوعهم وده حق بتوعهم. والحق ده اننا ذلك صفوات التحكم قاعدين نجيب مع الناس ايوه صفقات. يعني الاتفاقيه ما ممكن الناس يتفقوا في الاتفاق بالشوكول وما ينفذوا الكلام ده ما صح. كلنا الجنوبيين بنعرف الكلام ده. لما تتفق مع زول في مشكله وتفكروا لشيء لازم ينفذوه. لو في حاجه هناك بيعرف التنفيذ الاتفاقيه المفروض الناس تتكلم في البوينت ده شنو السبب؟ لازم يكون الناس يفتش اسباب ما جاء بس دول ما داري نفذ الاتفاقيه ما في كلام زي ده يا براذر بريمون. ثانك يو انا بجيب ثانك يو. نصبر للسبيك بتاع الرئيس عايز يقول شنو؟ كلنا منتظرين الرئيس هيقول شنو. ثانك يو.
all the obstacles.
But quick interjection, Wilson, Flora, and Isaac. Just quick interjection. Just point of correction and recommendation for Brother Paul, if it's okay.
All right, guys. The president now is here. He's coming live. Let's listen to him, please.
Yeah, Philemon, you were there when it was said in Clubhouse. Thank you. Let's listen to the president. Thank you.
You're inciting war here, brother. Just be careful what you say, man. You're a responsible person. You have to understand what you're saying. And if you have a grassroots movement, please focus on them. Don't come into open forum and mention things you're not aware of. You do not have.
It was said openly.
Hold on.
There's recording.
Just listen
in the SPLM supporters. And I can tell you the name of person who said it.
Take a minute and listen, man.
Okay.
Don't incite war here. That's very dangerous. Allow the president to speak first. That's a matter of national security. That's their responsibility to protect us.
Well, this was the national security speaking.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
No, that message should not have come to you. And I don't know who you are at this point.
They brought it to Clubhouse.
As a president, or
they brought it to Clubhouse, yeah, Madby.
Madby, okay, guys, we're going to hear the president speak.
This guy's dangerous. Paul, be careful.
I have the information too.
Yeah. Keep that information to yourself and allow the president to speak first.
Hey guys, can you keep quiet and listen, please?
All right, continue, Isaac.
All right, yeah. Hang on. We have network issue in Juba, but it's now talking. Just wait.
The person with the president's speech, you have mute yourself. Unmute yourself so that we could hear. Thank you.
We can't hear anything, Isaac.
Yeah, it's a network issue. It's loading, but it's there in the conference. Okay. It's talking now. Just hang on.
Yes. You know.
Oh my goodness.
Before we came in, and I was first back.
The network is bad.
Yeah, the network is so bad in Juba, but just hold on. Everything will be okay shortly. Oh God, what is going on here? What the hell going on in Juba with the network?
You know, before we became independent, I was the first to accept the war. In my New Year's address, to establish the Commission for Truth, Reconciliation, and Healing as stipulated in the revitalized peace agreement. The establishment of truth and reconciliation is also demanded by our National Human Rights Commission. The objective of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is to receive the document complaints and eyewitness reports of the victims of the tragic events in both 2013 and 2016. Personally, it is in my best interest for the people of South Sudan, especially the victims, to know exactly what took place during those two unfortunate events. Having said this, I would like to state that we are aware of and acknowledge the views of those who see the establishment of hybrid court for South Sudan as the priority. However, we also strongly believe prioritizing punitive justice will take away from the goal of reconciliation, which is what is needed the most in our country. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, the government do not deny, minimize, or shy away from prosecuting those who committed crimes. We have demonstrated this through our actions. We have prosecuted people and imposed considerable prison terms, prison sentences to those who were found guilty, including our own soldiers. I am also mindful that what we have done and the position we have taken on issues related to human rights violations are not shared by some of our partners. At times, this creates a situation where our views are misrepresented in the reports compiled by them. This situation cannot serve the interests of the victims who suffer atrocity. If any, it politicizes their victimhood. For us as the government, we believe that more can be achieved if we can work collectively with our partners to strengthen the capacity of our institutions. We do not believe that it is helpful for each party to work independently. Providing capacity building and technical assistance locally in areas related to human rights protection, for example, can go a long way in improving the situation. This path can deliver more results than the current reports written independently by our partners and circulated internationally with the sole goal of applying pressure on the government. The government is open to genuine partnership that addresses real challenges, but it equally objects to any attempt to undermine its work by those who choose to operate outside established institutions. With all we are going through, real cooperation with our partners is an ideal path for us. For instance, we are faced with prevailing insecurity in certain parts of our country, driven mostly by cattle rustling, intercommunal violence, flooding, food insecurity, food insecurity induced by climate change. These are areas where we can collaborate to achieve desired results for their people. We also need This real partnership in the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement, which we are committed to implement despite the challenges we are facing. The revitalized peace agreement we are implementing is an ambitious document. This fact is often discounted by those who think it should be implemented overnight. The full implementation of this agreement cannot be done without having a sustained dialogue among the parties. In the process of dialogue, we as parties to the agreement at times hit minor bumps on the road. In light of this, I would like our people to consider the recent SPLM IO Political Bureau resolution that came out from its meeting held on 11th to 14th of March 2022 and other communications they have shared with the public as part of sustained dialogue. Sustained dialogue I just mentioned. These kinds of conflicting positions are expected in the implementation of a complex agreement like ours to ensure that no one panics from this. I'm assuring you that the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement is on track. We all consider this agreement as the path to our stability, and I'm committed to working with our partners to implement it. For the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement to be genuine, we need transparency on the root causes of the conflict. It is for this reason that I am directing the National Security Service and its partner, the BRL law firm, to declassify all information about the conflict's genesis in their possessions. Intercepts audios and personal accounts. This is very important so that the people of South Sudan know the truth and judge for themselves from the position of this acknowledge. From this knowledge, we must say the truth, because genuine reconciliation has its basis on it. This will also support the process of healing in our country. Having said that, I need to state clearly that those who may be implicated by the declassified information that is going to be released are guaranteed presidential pardon. So there is no cause for alarm over this. All we are interested in is for the public to know the truth about the background of the conflict in our country. I hope after the release of this information, we can all move forward with permanent peace building that will create harmony and prosperity in our country. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen of the press.
Yeah, maybe you just heard everything is declassified. Thank you.
We may take one, two questions from the floor. Thank you. Boom, Administer.
Hello? Hello?
السؤال الثاني بعد التصريحات من قبل المتحدث الرسمي للجيش والدفاع عن السودان المتحدث الرسمي للمعارضه انه ربما جنوب السودان حتكون في حرب شامله. انت كرئيس لهذا البلد ما هو السؤال الاخير؟ سؤال
اثنين كفايه لك. Your first question was the insecurity in Juba. ما في مشكلة بالأمن في شوارع بتاع جوبا. اللي قاعد يعملوه في جوبا ده normal thing. ممكن يحصل في أي دولة. لأنه في جوبا هنا في ناس مجرمين دخلوا نفسهم في صفوف بتاع المواطن. And these people ممكن يمشي ويضرب طلقة قريب لبيت بتاع مثلا لو مشى لبيت بتاع رياض مشار وضرب طلقة هناك نحن بنشوف كأنه ده يرجع وبدأ يهجم للناس. فلو وجود بتاع الجيش في الشوارع ده ما يعني انه في مشكلة بتاع security في جوبا. It is not. As for your second question about تصريحات بتاعت متحدث رسمي بتاعت الجيش الشعبي، أبدا أنا بقول إنه ده كلام شخصي ما حدثوا في SPLM ولا SPDF عشان يمشي يعمل تصريحات زي ده. So this is a personal statement وما ممكن ياخدوه بإنه هيكون في رد فعل من حكومة يمشي للشكل ده. Well, there is no obstacle that cannot be solved. Any obstacle on the way, you must resolve it before you proceed forward. So if there is anything, I talked about dialogue before here. So if there is dialogue, all the obstacles can be resolved. ما في حاجة أصعب من إنه human being يمشي ورا المشكلة بتاعه.
My first question is following the declaration by the SPLMIO on its position to pull out from the peace mechanisms to the security. Have you initiated any move to discuss the issue with the first vice president? My last question is, in the center of all this you have talked is related to the security arrangements of the peace agreement. Why is it taking very long for SPLMIG, IO and SOA to agree on the leadership structure of the security arrangements?
Well, your first question is about the yes. You know, before we became independent, I was the first.
Oh, yeah, something went wrong. I think the president didn't answer that question, and the network interruption turned in. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Hang on, Clubhouse, we're coming. Thank you so much, guys. Those in the clubhouse and those who in the studio with me here. Thank you for being patient. So we had network issue that he didn't catch up every single press conference. Our President, Republic of South Sudan, Salva Kiir Mayardit has said, but I understand most of you they catch up and they know what's going on and how he has answered the main important question that everybody is worried in the country and outside of the country. Tonight, today, this afternoon, wherever you are tuning in Lagos State Media Show, we had our brother Edmund Yakani is also with us here, and hundreds of people who are lined up in clubhouse of Lagos State Media. Also, they are there to analyze and we talk more about what's going on. This morning when I wake up here in Australia, the first the headlines that I caught up with is the message from you, Emmanuel Yakani, that intervention is urgently needed in South Sudan for the hidden things happening. So we say welcome back again to Lagos State Media and thank you for your activism into what you like. So welcome back to Lagos State Media. Greet everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. How are you guys?
Good, thank you. What is going on? There's a lot of wind. Do you have a fence next to you?
A fan. There's a fan next to me. Let me just put the fan off. But let me say hi, and let me call for everybody that let our spirits and our mind and our soul focus on peace rather than flaming words and statements that will bring violence. Violence is not the option, and violence will never happen again. But we'll try our level best to make sure that our leaders have to change their attitudes to really speak the truth, stand for the truth, to take this country to the destination we want. So let me put the fan off. But otherwise, hello to everyone.
Thank you so much. You are highly welcome, and thank you for that message. And that's why we are all here, all South Sudanese people in diaspora, back home, around the world. Everybody is worried. Because of what the news that are going out, being circulated in the social media, they are unhealthy. There is no proof of information where they come from, and that thing is triggering panicking. Everybody's panic. We heard from the president. I read out the letter from the first vice president of Republic in the clubhouse before. And we know what's going on. And we heard the question that the press has asked the president is the same question that is ringing in our mind that we should ask him. What's going on and all these things. Can you elaborate it more? Before you go in more, I would like to welcome my colleague, Sir Abraham Madit is here. Now we have Majok Makur Malak also with us here in Lagos State Media. And we in the clubhouse, Abraham Madid will control all these things. I recognize and acknowledge your presence, guys. You have been waiting for so long. The time will come for you to ask your questions here later on when we open the question. And Abraham Madid is the one who will control all these things. So that's all the thing that I would like to say. Before you come in, also, I would like to give it back to Abraham Madid and Majok Makur to say something. Abraham, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So thank you, Ben Isaac, Press Secretary Majong Malak, and our guests. Welcome to Lagos State Media, and thank you. We want We will start listening to the people in Clubhouse after our guests speak, and then we will, if somebody want to join us in the studio here, we'll send you the link in private. So we will not put the link on in public because it will be too much crowded. So here, microphone back to you, Secretary General.
Unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chairman Isaac, and Finance Secretary, who is coordinator, Abramadit. Yeah, actually, we have had a lot of words and promise that might give certain hope from our president, I mean. And to my good brother, Edmund Yakani, you're highly welcome once more to Lagos State Media platform so that you can also highlight some of the few words or statements from the president's speech. Because this is a very critical time for our country. And you are all welcome, especially our viewers on Clubhouse and the followers on Facebook. We are here to analyze and give meaning to the speech of the president. If there were some of the things that need to be isolated and scrutinized properly, then we are here to discuss them and see how this speech will change the whole narrative currently in the country. Thank you so much. This is what I can add, and to welcome my good brother, Edmund. Kindly, we are here to discuss that. We will be happy to hear from you and hear from our colleagues on Clubhouse. What are the views and the understanding of the speech or the presidential address, which was delivered shortly a few minutes ago by the President Salva Kiir Mayardit? So we are here to listen to you. And the floor is yours, my brother.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can I seek an opinion that I'll put my video off because of the network? So just you can get my audio.
All right, go ahead. It's okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think first I'd like to say hi to everyone. The same way you are panicking, it was also yesterday, actually 2 days ago, the momentum of fear started increasing in the town of Juba when we see the clashes happening around Pagak, Longochuk, and Maiwut. And the translation of those classes lead to the withdrawal of IO from all security mechanism, where they decided not to participate in all the security mechanism. And that immediately developed the emotions in Juba town to be turned as a start of confrontation between the IO and the SSPDF in terms of security as is concerned with regard to Chapter 2 of the Revitalized Agreement. And as the development continue, then in the night hour, His Excellency President issued presidential decree in which he relinquished position of Deputy Chief of Staff, Deputy IGP, and other positions to SPLA-IO 4 and 1 to SOA. And that resulted to IO denouncing the decree as a unilateral decree. They wish that that decree could have come through consensus. So that's the background of the panic. And really, yesterday night, at around from 7-8, we start realizing increase of uniform personnel in the streets of Juba, and around J1, citizens are reporting, oh, we are turned out not to use the street, and they see deployment, and that's people saying, oh, React Live is under threat because his house has been surrounded by people in uniform. And that has made a panic, and you can see increase the social media. If you realize the last hours from 9 p.m. until 4 a.m., if you see the messages of a possible imminent clash in Juba, it's almost doubling any other event that has happened in the country because everybody's afraid. In the morning, some people start pronouncing language like, oh, I don't want to be caught up in Juba like the situation of 2013 or 2016. Some people start thinking, like, let's go look for ticket. If not ticket, let's take off to Uganda. So as I'm speaking with you, some people under the fear and the panic might have left you Uganda. So that's the background where we are. And of course, from there, as a civil society, we start taking leadership. We start calling on the leadership and we start calling for urgent intervention, as you said, that when you saw the first message is that I call for a quick intervention because we realized really the development was not healthy. I have to be honest and sincere to you that the streets of Juba in the night hours were not honesty, were really not in a good mood. We saw presence of uniformed people, and that really have caused panic and havoc in the town, and that's why we immediately pick it up and call for an intervention. Now, what is the tech that I would like to share with the listeners? In terms of the tech that has brought this situation, it's the implementation of Chapter 2 of the Revitalized Agreement. And I would like to tell to the listeners in this platform that personally, I participated in the peace process, and specifically with the elements of Chapter 2. I was one of the civil society members that we keep going on the issue of security arrangement. So I had a bit of background of where Chapter 2 is coming from. So one thing that I'd like to bring to the attention of the audience very clear is that the implementation of Chapter 2 is much more connected with the element of trust and confidence building among the principals. And here, mainly when I say the principals, it refers to His Excellency President and First Vice President, because they too have the real military strength and capability that Chapter 2 have to take into account in terms of all those tasks. The other forces, yes, they have forces, but their forces are not so much huge and so not so much impacting in terms of the crisis in the country. So South Sudan People's Defense Force and SPLIO are the two main partners that will Chapter 2 is specifically designed to address that. And what are the values of Chapter 2? The rest are there. The general concept of Chapter 2 is to build a national professional army. So this national professional army will be built through unification of forces. So by unification of forces, it means the concept of integration is not entertained by Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is entertaining unification. Now, when we look at the steps to unify the forces, many people like to rush to graduation of the unified forces. But if you look at the steps that are required for unification of the forces, the first thing is you need to unify the command structure. What I mean by the command structure is that you need to have one chief of staff, you need to have one commander-in-chief, then you need to have a structural way so that when you graduated the unified forces that are going to be redeployed, they should be redeployed under a central command system. So that is step one. If you don't unify the command structure, whatever you're doing in Chapter 2, the chances of it being undermined is very high. And that's why you realize that the decree issued by President is a decree for unification of command structure. And this unification of command structure that the decree was issued by the President is a result of President's meeting with the chairperson of the Sovereign Council of Sudan, that's Al-Burhan, when Burhan met President in Juba, because unification of the command structure requires high level of trust and confidence between the principals of the parties that signed the agreement, because that means you're going to bring all the security institutions and the defense institution under a central command system that does not pay any allegiance to any political party that signed the agreement. So that is one element of a problem that have triggered the situation we're in, because since the signing of the agreement, they can't reach any consensus on the unification of the command structure. Now, what complicated matters was in the unification of the command structure is that a statistical formula was brought, and the statistical formula is not enshrined in the agreement. What is a statistical formula? Opposition was saying for us to unify the command structure, let's go for 50-50 share. What does it mean 50-50 share? It means the size of the command structure, incumbent government control 50% of it, and opposition in terms of IO, SOA, OPP control also 50% of it, which the incumbent under His Excellency President said, no, let's go for 60 versus 40. And this was disputed and long dialogue have taken there, couldn't work. And this what delayed the unification of the command of the structure, what do you call the command structure unification. Now, also, if you're going to talk about the command structure unification, in military, the command structure is not grades like in civil servants, grade 1, grade 2. The command structure if you want to unify it in the security arrangement, is that it's linked with ranks. So ranking, unification of ranks is very important. And you might have had in the address of the president, which is what I'm going to speak about in more detail, the address of president have referred that IU have come with generals and they don't have foot soldiers. That's an element of trust that the incumbency opposition like IU have not come with foot soldiers. So one of the things that you need to unify the ranks. So the unification of the ranks require proper commitment of the principles and require leadership that you need to make orders and the way that this is the way how our structure need to be done. So all parties have been promoting, being the incumbent or being the opposition, there's a rapid promotion or abnormal promotion or speedy promotions in the ranking system, and that have complicated the unification of the command structure. Those two steps, if we don't achieve them, even if you graduate unified forces, it's still going to be problematic. So you need to unify the command structure, you need to unify the ranking system, so that now, once you graduate the unified forces, you redeploy them, the center of order and directives remain one and remain a single. And that is where the problem is. And this issue becoming more complicated because also the revitalized agreement is ending with elections. So the redeployment of the unified forces from many of the parties are not seen from professional security and defense perspective. It's been seen by redeploying boots and uniform and guns that you can control certain territory for winning elections. So redeployment is not been seen professional. Redeployment is seen from political. And that's why the concept of the redeployment has brought in the element of defections, where you start realizing that within the IO, forces are defecting from IO and joining the SSPDF. And let me come in terms of the security arrangement with defections. If you look at the provision of the revitalized agreement, Article 2.8.1 says any party that signs the revitalized agreement is not allowed to recruit new forces after signing the ceasefire. So that word recruitment in the discussion in the security arrangement is that defection militarily, if you defect from party A to party B, and party B is a signatory to the agreement, and party B embraced your defection, it means party B have accepted you to be enrolled into its line, and that may mount it to a new recruitment. And that means it's a violation of the agreement. So defection by nature, whether being supported or embraced, is a violation of the security arrangement. And that is another problem that has caused chaos. Because if you see the ongoing clashes, immediately defectors fighting their counterparts, and the defectors are embraced by one party that did not denounce the defection. So that is another center of problem that I like to bring to all audience in this, that's a complication of security arrangements. So for me, that's the background, what triggered the situation we are in now. And besides the element of we cannot graduate our unified forces because we're lacking uniform, we're lacking rivals. But good enough that during the president address, president say when they're fighting with the IOs, they're not fighting with the sticks, they're fighting with the guns. And that's why always I used to say, we shouldn't delay the graduation of the forces because we have arms embargo or because we have a lack of rivals. Because when they're fighting in the bush, they're using rivals, as president have said. Where are those rivals? It's a matter of bringing those rivals, register them under official state, and use the same rivals as official registered state rivals, graduate them, and then redeploy them. But because element of trust and confidence is very low among the leadership of the parties that signed the agreement, resulted in that particular situation. That's with regard to chapter 2 that I'd like to bring to everybody's attention. Now, coming to the speech of the president. The speech of the president in the beginning, first, it sent a signal very clear in key messages that the incumbent under his leadership or the government is committed to ensure that reconciliation, justice, and accountability as enshrined in the revitalized agreement will be embraced. So that means chapter 5, the president is committed to it. And he went further as even saying that in regard to the question of justice and accountability and reconciliation, he cannot compromise. This must be executed. Perpetrators must be held accountable. Use that as a key message. That means refers to political will for chapter 5 is there, but we are aware that chapter 5 couldn't move up to now because there's a dragging of feet, even in establishing the soft institution of chapter 5. Like what? Like National Healing and Reconciliation Commission, and then like Compensation Reparation Authority. Because the hybrid court, it's been seen political as a threatening to leadership. And the hybrid court is given to AU. But the dialogue between AU and the government is not moving anywhere. It's back forth, back forth. But at least President have given that message very clear. But also in the President's speech address to the nation, he have mentioned the word real partnership, and he stressed the real partnership with a continuous, what he termed as sustainable dialogue. So President was saying the implementation of agreement is not easy, but the culture of a continuous dialogue need to happen. But also, as an activist, my main question is, if you look at the agreement, Article 1.5.1, read together with Article 1.9.6.1, there's an institution established called presidency. Presidency is a mechanism of South Sudanese leaders headed by His Excellency President, then the first vice president and other vice presidents, where they sit on their own as a principles of the parties that signed the agreement to make political decision. And the political decision is by consensus and is binding. Then the question is, the mechanism of the presidency does not have a regular meetings. That could have been the mechanism where the concept of the dialogue could have been entertained. Because if you see at the IO statement, they were saying the decree of the president is unilateral. They believe the decree of the president would have come as a result of the mechanism of the presidency meeting, that they decided, okay, by consensus as enshrined in the agreement, Article 1.5.1 read together with 1.9.6.1, we could have reached consensus. That's where the IU is disputing the decree of the president in terms of how it's reached is unilateral. So the presidency is the mechanism of dialogue. So the question comes that President have said is that we are ready for sustainable dialogue. Honestly, to all audience, peace agreements implementation, if you go to its track record, it is complicated. Why? Because parties shift interest from time to time. So to readjust those shifting interests, normally the approach is that entertain dialogue. Like the CPA, as President said, it took him a long time also to continue dialoguing with Bashir in the implementation of CPA. So the concept of the dialogue is a message that President said. So for me, if the listeners are asking, what is next? We need to see a continuous meeting of the mechanism of the presidency. And maybe if we need external, a GATT need to help the mechanism of the presidency to function, because it's an instrument of dialogue that President have mentioned. Of course, President underrated the insecurity in Juba. Say this insecurity is a normal, like in any other capital city, because the idea is that to calm down the criminal-minded individuals in the town. And his worry is that maybe if anybody at that particular tension moment, if anybody shoot a bullet close to Riek Machar's house, and that may mean that Riek's attacking them or they're attacking them, and that might trigger to violence. I think there at least it makes sense, but the deployment shouldn't have been close to the house of the first vice president. But that's what caused the panic, because the deployment was close to the first vice president, and able to say now what is happening, what's going on. So that is what he has said, that is normal in any other city. And of course, he didn't call off, or he didn't say self-hostility can cease. But if you look at the content of his speech, the idea that the tension should ease, or they need to cease the tension, is very clear. And I hope that we're going to see today in the evening. We hope that the tension will cease in the streets of Juba and we feel things normal, because the speech of the president of the nation is what we have been calling for. That silence in the presidency cannot help. But also the president have gone as further as saying the withdrawal of the IO from the security mechanisms. The IO could have withdrawn after, if they could have reached, His Excellency Vice President would have reached for him a dialogue, and he used his case study where when the SPLA during the implementation of the CPA said them withdraw from Khartoum, and he as a vice president then move the SPLA and say, no, allow me to meet first President Bashir, let President Bashir come with his team, and I go with my team, let's talk before we withdraw. So he say Riek would have, before declaring withdrawal from security mechanism, His Excellency First Vice President would have approached him as a president. They could have dialogue. Maybe they would have resolved before they withdraw from the security mechanism. So he blamed that to the SPLIO leadership, that they could have entertained dialogue before they could withdraw, because that might have increased the tension and the havoc among them. So that's what he has said. And he assured that he is committed, or the government is committed, for the implementation of the revitalized agreement. But this commitment needs to be demonstrated by an action. And for me, one of the things is that you can hear statements of our leaders, and repeatedly in public events, they do say, we don't return the country, we are not ready to return the country back to war. But around them, both being His Excellency President or His Excellency First Vice President, there's a spoilers who send signals that are signals of violence. Now, for me, I wish that when the president said we are committed to the implementation of the revitalized agreement, he also condemned those individuals who are sending signals, that are sending messages to the public attention, as if the parties or the government is not committed to implement, because there are spoilers within or around them in their systems. And of course, one of the examples that he made very clear which I wish should not be very challenging, is that he asked the security institutions to disclose information that were being tracked from several communication channels about the actual root causes. And he said those whom will be implicated in that disclosed information, they're given a presidential pardon. So they should not panic, they should not worry that they're targeted because of the release of that information that time that we have mentioned. And one thing that he mentioned, and I think it's a very good one, about the position of the statements of the spokesperson of the armed forces. I have never spoke to the position of the spokesperson of the SPLA IO, but he spoke specifically on the position of the spokesperson of the SPDA by saying the statement made by the spokesperson of South Sudan People's Defense Force. And that statement is mainly when the clash is going on in Pagak and Mayut. And the spokesperson of the South Sudan People's Defense Force have said the IO have declared a war. President have said that is his personal statement. That statement was not a decision in the High Command Council of the SSPDF that they have met and they have decided that should be there. So he qualified that that statement is a personal position of the SSPDF spokesperson. And I hope that something should be done around that in terms of decision will be taken. So I would like to say these are the key messages of the president. Of course, he didn't go further as calling for cessation of hostility, but I hope that based on the address as a leader of the country, that may cease hostility among the forces. And of course, our wishes is that we hope that could have led to the call of the ground commanders who are confronting themselves now to be disciplined by the president and first vice president. And I hope that also one of our wishes, we wish that after this address tomorrow, they should have a presidency meeting to cement this message to a concrete move that will assure citizens no return to violence. We are aware that implementation of a political agreement like the River Trust Agreement, normally it has its standing block, but this standing block require a dialogue that has take back the country. But before I conclude, you might have seen the statement issued by His Excellency First Vice President. And you see that statement is issued prior to the address of the president to the nation. And one of his main problems that he has raised is that the deployment of force around him have caused panic around the citizen. Of course, he referred back to that. And he also have said that some action that are distracting the implementation of the peace agreement are coming up. And he also has went further as calling for, he need to see a bit of regional and national institutions coming to show commitment so that commitment can take the country further. And he feels this action are provocative with compared to what happened in 2013 and in 2016, similar provocation. What happened now looks like the similar provocation of what has happened at that time. And of course, he continued further saying they're not ready to go for war as IO under his leadership, His Excellency First Vice President. So those are the messages that come out from the both leaders as address to the country. His Excellency First Vice President released a statement, and His Excellency President addressed the nation. In conclusion, before I could go to questions, this is my take now, my personal take on this particular situation. My personal take on this particular situation is that the absence of a regular meeting of the presidency give the spoilers of peace an opportunity to create informations that any slight disagreement can be amplified. That's one thing. Secondly, I feel our leaders need to really take responsibility. And specifically, if you look at Article 1.1.1.1 of the River Trust Agreement, say a government of national unity will be established and entrusted to implement the agreement. The contradiction we have in the country, my brothers and sisters who are listening, who are audience in this particular talk, is that we sometimes contradict ourselves. We say we don't have money to implement the agreement, but you can see new possession of uniform, of vehicles for police. Then people asking, okay, what does it mean? You don't have money here, but there's a money for buying this. That's another thing that's contradicting. Thirdly is that our leaders need to really regain trust and confidence. And trust and confidence is not in one day. And this comes back into the other instruments of the implementation of the peace agreement, like RJMEC. I hope RJMEC need to be headed by a former president who can speak to president like His Excellency President Salva or the vice president. Heading RJMEC with people who are not presidents before, it really is problematic here in terms of the work. So for me, in conclusion, the primary responsibility for making peace and stability to prevail in South Sudan lies in the hands of the mechanisms of the presidency. Because we should not use the excuse that because we don't have money, we can't deliver the agreement, while our V8s of the members of the presidency run smoothly. None of them is being stopped because there's lack of money. So for me, it's a question of like what His Excellency President have said. They need to continue the dialogue. The more they talk to each other, the more they instill in citizen trust and confidence on the agreement. But the more they disagree, the more they instill in citizens fear and tendency, and enemies of peace take advantage of that. So what do we need to call? What do we need to call? And I'm concerned maybe some members of this particular platform have the ears of the president or have ears of the friends of the president. What do we need to call is that they should continue dialogue. And specifically at the moment where we're expecting for the first time in the history of the world that two top religious leaders, Archbishop of Canterbury and Pope, visiting a country like South Sudan at the same time. That's a blessing. Besides the kiss, that's a blessing from the global community. It means we are loved, but we need to show our primary responsibility politically that we are capable of handling our issues at the mechanism of the president. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Edmund Yakani. I appreciate your analysis, how you have narrated what is going on. Apologize for those who are just complaining on the floor or on the ground, the other side. Yeah, we will take up your questions. Please just be patient. We are just analyzing what we heard from both sides. We have already got the letter from the press secretary of Dr. Riek Machar, and also the President of the Republic has just finished his speech recently. And that's why we need to compare this, because there is comparison here. I can look back at 2013 when including the current Minister of Information, Michael Makundu, and the rest, they went to make a press conference, including Nyal Deng Nyal and all these people. And that night, things changed completely. That has really brought the whole country to the knee, to its knees. So now, yes.
Can I have a question for him? A second, the guy.
You will have a question. I think Abraham Madid, are you there? You are the one controlling the clubhouse. Who is one to raise the question here?
Thank you, I have a question for him.
Yeah, you have interrupted. You have interrupted me, but I should have finished here, and then I will invite the question from clubhouse. All of you, you will come in. All right. So, Emmanuel Yakan, if we can compare, especially the number 6 and 7, says the same sentiments. In conclusion, that I reiterated and confirm unequivocally the solemn commitment for the SPLM-SPLA-IO to the people of the Republic of South Sudan, the region, and the international community at large, that the SPLM-SPLA-IO will not be the one to return the country to war. Finally, the SPLM-SPLA-IO is committed in the implementation of the peace agreement. And that is the same statement our president also has concluded before he allowed the media press to ask the question. So both of them, they say they are committed to the implementation of the peace agreement. But there is these things running in between, like deployment of the security, changes of the security guards of the people, or the leadership of the SPLM-IO leadership, who is the past vice president. He made his changes of the bodyguards and drivers. He just made that change, and the president just enforced the security, saying that he need to protect the vice president, not to allow any criminal to come behind the compound and shoot the bullet in the air, and then maybe retaliated that we are attacked, and this is how it start the triggering. So can you elaborate it more about that? Like that, I will allow you to get more questions from the clubhouse.
Thank you very much. I would like to say this comparison, these statements of we are committed for the implementation of the revitalized agreement. We will never return the country back to violence. It's a shared sentiment among the parties that are signatories to the revitalized agreement right from day one. But besides these statements, continuous violation of ceasefire is going on, attacks. And of course, some would say we're in self-defense. So there's a thread of accusations of who is attacking who, and Citizen is producing reports from time to time. Besides this continued language of we are committed and we're not ready to return the country back to violence is continuing on. And there's a continuous delay of implementing the chapter 2, besides they continue saying also we are committed. While chapter 2 is a cornerstone, my brothers and sisters in this platform, even if we implement the rest of the chapters 100%, we fail to implement chapter 2, the easy pathway of going back to violence is lack of genuine implementation of chapter 2. So chapter 2 is a center of stability in this country, in our country, the Republic of South Sudan. But as they say they're committed for the implementation, the commitment to be demonstrated by implementing chapter 2 is not there. So both parties are so careful that none of them want to be blamed for returning the country back to war. None of them need to be blamed for making the agreement fail. Each of them want to be seen as they are committed to that. But their actions to demonstrate their commitment and the lack of return is contradictory. One side is attacking other sides, and other sides say we're in self-defense. One side, because of the retaliation of the attacks, acts like the way how you describe it. So the question is the level of trust and confidence between president and vice president, is it high? Or is the level of deficit in trust and confidence between the president and first vice president is high? Because we need to weigh. My assessment is that the level of trust between the two is completely very low. Is very low in the sense that they have the power of making a joint decision to make things go widely. But the level of trust and confidence among them is very low. Is very low. Why very low? Around them, there are too many spoilers. There are too many spoilers that want to retain their influence in terms of control of political power, access to money. So sometimes the two may be genuine. This is just an assumption. The two may be genuine, but the people around them may be spoiling them. So the question comes is that, can they take a responsibility of displaying the spoilers around them? And can they regain trust and confidence? Because one of the indicators we could have shown that there's a trust and confidence between the two. After they signed the agreement, we could have seen a joint press conference, or even tour to the country, like the situation of today. We would have seen a joint press conference. Still, that's what that does not trust. The only position, the only joint event that they did, and have shown it things very clear. Remember when they came to Juba in Garang's Mausoleum, where him and President Salva addressed the public and hold on, look at the impact by then. It was so big, everybody appreciated. Remember, there's a one-time president was leaving Juba going to South Africa. He was escorted by first vice president, Dr. Riek Machar. And as president is getting to the plane, they wave at each other. Everybody say, wow, that's a good beginning, that they're showing the nation that they're working together. But if they don't demonstrate that regularly, the chances of people having mistrust is very high. And also, they need to demonstrate their commitment by implementing chapter 2. And remember, one of the things I'd like to bring to the audience here, chapter 4 about the financial reforms, we're getting plus there. Traker have appreciated the reforms around the public finance management, and that have led to World Bank appreciating, that have led just some days ago. IMF was here. IMF was praising the parties for really delivering the required public finance reforms. Those gains, if we could have turned them around for implementation of chapter 2 on the security arrangement, could have been better, because everybody analysis of chapter 2 is that chapter 2 is connected with the elections, and chapter 2 is connected with level of trust and confidence. So this statements is not new. We have heard of those sentiments before. What we need to see is they need to translate these statements and these sentiments into an action. So, and this, what are the actions? One, they need to sanction defections as a sign of commitment for the implementation of the agreement in relation to chapter 2. They need to sanction the sanctions. They need to sanction defections. 3, they need to make sure no violation, any single violation, the people behind the violation of ceasefire are held accountable. I remember there was one exercise one time in Melekal that almost coming like what is happening now in Longochuk, in Maywood, and Pagak. President and first vice president called the field commanders to Juba, and they were displayed and they were sent back. Everybody appreciate that. That would have been demonstration of a commitment. And in regard to the graduation of the unified forces, graduate the unified forces quickly and redeploy them. That would have shown the commitment. So chapter 2, it is the headache. The rest of the chapters are okay. I know chapter 5 is a problematic in terms of a hybrid court, but that chapter is okay. So the question is, it is translating this commitment by an action. Walking the talk is what is needed in terms of translating what they call, we are committed to the implementation agreement, will never return the country back to war. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yamon. That's real wonderful. Let us give a chance to people in Clubhouse. Flora John, you are in charge in Clubhouse. You can start giving people a chances now.
Okay, Brother Triple B.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have a question for him. Now the gentleman explained all his agreement, and we forget, forget about this one thing. The opposition leaders, they have been campaigning for the government not to allow the gun, and we are aware that the government has been given sanction, not allowed any military equipment to the country. And today, all the opposition people, they're complaining that, so we have, the government said we have lack of uniform, we don't have a gun for the unified forces. Now, the country is under sanction, and we have unified forces without uniform, without gun. Where in your agreement, in your chapter that you read out, what did your agreement tell us? If the government is under sanction, not allowed to buy any uniform or military outside, where do you expect the government of South Sudan to buy uniform for the unified forces? That is my question.
All right. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I think Edmund Yakani, you had that question, and you have mentioned it before. Yes. When President Kiir was saying that we were not fighting using sticks. So the gun that you were using when we were fighting, we can just use it to be given to those in the training centers. So go back again and answer that question.
Yes, one, I'd like to say to the caller that, yes, the country is under sanction, and actually it's not sanction, it's called arms embargo. An arms embargo is imposed on the country, and by arms embargo, it means you can't shift arms and anything related to arms work, like uniform or ammunition or rifles or anything. That's arms embargo. It's been imposed on the country. But still, I go to what His Excellency President have said. When they're fighting in the bush, they're not fighting with the sticks.
Yes.
They're fighting with artillery, they're fighting with rivals. Now, also one thing I have to bring to the audience who have asked this question is that when we're talking about the unification of forces, we're not talking about the recruitment of civilians into the organized forces that will compose the unified forces. That's why Article 2.8.1 have sanctioned new recruitments. We mean that the people are supposed to report to the training ground to be trained and unified and graduate as unified forces are those who are actively with the guns in their hands and they've been shooting at each other. And the ones supposed to come with their guns. What would have happened in the agreement is that you come with your gun and your gun is registered officially as a gun of the country and is subject to be owned by the state and governed by the principle of the laws of the country, in which above them is a constitution. So you pay your allegiance to the constitution rather than to the party that brought you with a gun to the training ground. So after training ground, you will be graduated as a unified force. After being graduated as a unified force, you will be redeployed so that you lose your party territorial control, you become army of the nation. So I don't think there's an excuse on that because of the arms embargo, we can't train and graduate our unified forces. Besides the issue of the uniform, Sudan have contributed to uniform. Egypt have contributed to uniform because when you say we don't have uniform, those uniforms are enough. And we have seen when a new political scenario come up, you see people come with new uniform. You start asking, where would this uniform been brought? Are they in the stores? Why do we use the same uniform to graduate the forces? So I think for me, that there's evidence that we have all the requirements, we have all the assets to translate our army in the training ground to be graduated as a unified forces. The only thing is that the will to deliver that is law. And why the will is low? Because trust and confidence among the parties is still very low, and actions of the parties are contradicting each other. The way how His Excellency President have mentioned about the way how IO comes is you come with ranks that are high, and also you have seen the way how IO challenge government is that you need to make unilateral decision without respect the agreement. So each party is accusing the other of demonstrating behaviors that does not embrace the commitment and acceptance for unification of the forces. So until they iron out that, and that's why I'm saying the first thing is that you need to unify the command structure, because once you unify the command structure, then you can handle the security arrangement. Chapter 2 standing block is unification of the command structure and ranks. Once you're done with that, the rest will run smoothly. And that 2 actions is require personal decision of His Excellency President, and because let me tell you, they have to sacrifice some of their commanders who fought. Like the way how President says, some of them come Brigadier General, you need to bring them back to Sergeant or to a mayor person, say, my brother, I'm sorry, in the bush you have this rank, or during the war with the IO you have this rank, time has come for you to come down. And specifically, one of the things that I like to always, I'm making a joke in the country. Today I'm Edmond Yakani. If I need to have the 8 and I need to live in Amarat, it's a matter of me, Edmond Yakani, going to the bush with 6 soldiers, have 1 PKM type Ida, 1 AK-47, 1 bullet RPG, wait for SPLA car coming like Land Cruiser, shoot at them, then call all media houses, either BBC, CNN, Miraya, or iRadio, and I say, today I'm not the Edmond Yakani that you know always as an activist. Then ask, who are you? I will say now, today, I'm Brigadier General, Commander-in-Chief, and the chairperson of this particular liberation movement against the system of the government under His Excellency President Salva Kiir. I condemn them, they're undemocratic, they're corrupt. I should then say, today I'm going to liberate this country from all these undemocratic leaders. Stay in the bush for 6 days or for 6 months after I promote myself as Brigadier General, call somebody who is close to me, close to the president, and say, please, tell the president, I think time has come for us to talk. Then later on, president say, okay, I sent you this particular person, maybe security advisor like Tutke or somebody, or Michael McQuay or Martin Elia or somebody come and talk with me in Kampala. I signed agreement, Edmond Yakani, Commander-in-Chief, Brigadier General, Chairperson. I come from the bush, I'm no longer Edmond Yakani, I'm Brigadier General, Chairperson, and with the V8, I shake down the president, Anajo Amarat, go to one of the Amaras, bring my sons and my brothers and my in-laws, put them as my bodyguards, create my ministry. Who are you again? Talk to me. You not talk to me as Edmond as an activist. You talk to me as Edmond Brigadier General. But time has come for us to unify professional. You know? So for me, my answer is that we need a commitment of our political leaders. They need to change their attitudes and embrace peace and stability of this country above all arguments that they have against each other. Thank you.
And trust. Thank you so much. Yes, to trust each other. Back to you, Flora. I think Benjamin Matot, your question is answered. If the Flora, go ahead. Anyone there?
Yep, Brother Makir Tukai, thank you for being patient.
Okay. Thank you so much, Flora and Isaac. I greet anyone who is listening to us. I have not listened to the whole speech of...
we have 1,000 plus people watching and listening.
Okay, good. I have not listened to... okay, I have to introduce myself maybe. I'm called Makir Paul. I'm from Australia. I come from Jonglei. I have not listened to the whole speech of the president, but I have maybe the end part. I have grabbed some information. All I have to say in the first place is that it is good for President Salva Kiir Mayardit to come out and give public assurance or address the public regarding what is going on. The content of his speech, we as South Sudanese, we will agree or some will not agree with him. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that we want to be assured that the country is not going back to war. That's all we want. So we give him thanks for that. We also give thanks to First Vice President Dr. Riek Machar for the assurance he has also given to public through the letter he circulated earlier on. That is all we want, because it is very easy for the country to go back to war. Now, going back to the speech of the president, what I have grabbed from him is that Salva Kiir Mayardit is telling us that he is ready to implement peace agreement. If he is listening, and I know he's not, but if anyone out there who is very close to Kiir or who is very close to affairs of nation, we want Salva Kiir Mayardit as citizen of South Sudan. We want him to implement that document in spirit and letter. We as citizens of South Sudan, we want Salva Kiir Mayardit to implement that document. We are tired of war. I, talking to you here, have been a supporter of Salva Kiir Mayardit. Up to now, I'm a supporter of Kiir Mayardit. I have to remind Salva Kiir Mayardit that it was him alone who took it upon himself to retract 32 states so as to make Riek Machar and other peace stakeholders happy. That position of ease was not so popular. Those who were supporting Salva Kiir Mayardit in the SPLM in government, those who were in cabinet with him, in parliament, his troops, his supporters were not happy, but he took it upon himself to do what was so unpopular then. His intention was to unify the country. Even back in 2015, Salva Kiir Mayardit decided alone to sign the document, which he earlier on refused to sign in Addis Ababa, until he came to Juba. And then international community followed him to Juba, and then he signed that document, where his two chief negotiators, Michael McQuay and Nialding, asked him not to, but he refused to sign it. And we all know the consequence of 2016, July 2016 dogfight in J1. Now, what we want Salva Kiir Mayardit to do as citizens, whether you've been supporting him before or not, as citizens of South Sudan, we want peace in our country. We want peace in our country. The idea of coming to public, trying to ask for public opinions or bringing issues of your disagreement to the court of public opinion, we don't entertain that. Because in that document called revitalized, so-called peace agreement, there is what is called hybrid court. The hybrid court is going to be established if indeed Kiir is going to implement that document, which he signed. We as his supporters then hate him not to, but he signed it. Therefore, he has to implement it. And in that document, hybrid court will be established. It is the hybrid court which is going to take care of perpetrators of war. Those who started 2013 war, those who later on started 2016 war, the hybrid court will take care of that. So the document that he was telling us, or the information he was telling us in his speech, that are going to be declassified, the audios and all that information, yeah, they are good. But we as citizens of South Sudan, wherever we are, we don't want them now, because they will confuse us more. We want them to be produced in a court, in a competent court, where perpetrators, culprits, and ringleaders who brought us war in 2013 and 2016 will be held accountable. He said in that speech that he is ready. And that's why some soldiers who were maybe, who broke maybe breach laws or rights were punished. We also want leaders to be punished. It is not upon Salva Kiir Mayardit to say if anyone is going to maybe hear his or her voice in that going to be declassified information, don't be panicked, don't be alarmed. There is presidential pardon on you. We want to tell Salva Kiir Mayardit it is not within his mandate to forgive people. We as citizens, because we have a lot of us are victims. Some families are destroyed because of that war. Some people's lives are destroyed. Some people's properties are destroyed. So it is upon victims to decide whether to forgive or not. Later on, when the court verdict is done. So all I want Salva Kiir Mayardit to do, if he is listening to us as citizens, we want implementation of that document. Riek Machar is weak. He's totally weak politically. He's totally weak militarily. Riek is in Juba. So people who are fighting in Upper Nile could not be attributed to Riek Machar. The Murle who are constantly killing in Jonglei State, who own them? We recently heard what happened between Abiy and people of Kiir Mayardit, who own those ones. In Equatorial, there's rampant killing. Who own those ones? So if there are people maybe killing people in Upper Nile, we can't say that they belong to Riek Machar. Riek is a helpless person in Juba. So Kiir has to man up and shows the way. It is in the hand of Salva Kiir Mayardit. If he wants to take us back to war, then we will hold him accountable, whether now or in future. It is him alone who will bring us peace. It is him alone who will take us back to war. Riek is just a bogeyman. He has nothing. People do not use Riek as a kind of a person to intimidate others. No, we want change. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chulech. Thank you, Flora. My brother Edmund, I think, can you take 2 or 3 questions and you write them down and you answer at one?
Yes, exactly. Because some of them are comments that are general comments that everybody can agree with. So let's get questions. Like what my brother Ahmed is a comment that I don't think anybody can dispute his comment. It's a call of everybody. Yeah.
That's why I need to add on. Flora, if there are more people who have questions or their prospective views, they can just come in. You just let them talk, and Edmund will write down and answer them all at once.
Okay, I'll give Brother Charles a chance, and then Brother James comes after him.
Thank you, Flora. Good job.
Brother Charles, you can go ahead.
Yes, are you hearing me?
Loud and clear, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I have a question to Edmund. You know, Edmund, I listened to you, the way you focus so much about chapter 1 and chapter 2. But if you look at the speech of the president was focusing on chapter 5, which is accountability. So here there's a contradiction between you analyzing and the president's statement. But here also, if you look why president bring up chapter 5, and he said something before he jumped to chapter 5, he said the peace is on track. But you analyze, it shows that the peace is not on the track. Okay? Here. So why Riek Machar, okay, pull off when the IO forces themselves are fighting in Eastern Jacob? But when they were fighting the Kitgwang group in North Upper Nile, why Dr. Riek Machar never pull off? That's the first question. The second question, if you listen carefully to the president, he said, yes, there are people who are wearing uniform around Juba. Because somebody was asking about the insecurity, you know? But he says nothing. There's nothing threat here. But right now, as I'm talking to you, okay, there are 3 tanks surrounding the house of Dr. Riek Machar. Do you think that that's not something can cause panic more? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Brother Den Kamis, you can ask your question.
Let the next person come, please. I'm busy right now at this moment.
Okay, Brother Peter, if you have anything to say, you can ask your question, and then after that, Brother Ariel.
Well, I'm a little bit busy right now, so just listening. When I get a chance, I'll let you know when I'm free.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if I can ask a question. Just one question.
1 minute, Jibril. There's another person. I don't know how to call your name. I think it's Ariel or Ariel.
Ariel.
Okay, yep, Ariel. You can ask your question.
No, I was also intending to ask a question. What I was to speak like to relevant relation to chapter 2, chapter 1.
Okay, you can contribute
But
after
police
the
are
questions have been answered. Yeah.
okay.
Okay, Brother Jibril, if you have any question, you can ask.
Yeah, my concern is I know this guy named Edmund is reading is updating you guys here, but I don't know his role in the government. Is he a civil analyzer of the peace, or he was given authority by the government to update you guys? While
you can ask your question if you have a question, you can ask.
Yeah, that's my question. Is he attached to the IG? Because he's giving information and we don't know his role. Is he a civil? Is he a government? What is him?
He's activist for the peace.
He's a civil society.
He's a citizen.
Okay, Brother Kawaji, if you have any question, and then from there, that's it.
Yeah, I have a question here. Yeah. Can I go ahead?
Just go ahead quickly, please.
Yeah. I want to ask Edmund Yankani, because he said our president said the security is good and we're not going to return to war, and also Rengmasa said, oh, we're not going to return to war, and this one is the same speech that they speak last time on 2013. Is it true that they're not going to return to war since things are in tension?
Okay, noted. Anyone again, Flora, or you can just go ahead.
Brother Nino, do you have any question that you need to ask?
Not right now.
Flora? Okay, I think that's it. Yes?
Situation go on in South Sudan, but I put one question, but to my brother, tell us what is going on in South Sudan about peace agreement. Paul بتاعي طبعا بين كلام القالوا ده كله كلام بتاع مثلا وكلام الشارع العفوي قاعد يعمل راسك شويه ده، لكن نحن دايما الكلام ده كله بيورينا الاساس انه الاطراف بتاعت الاتفاقيه ما فيه مثلا نائب الاول للرئيس بيقول انه ما بيرجعوا للحرب مره اخرى. نحن فهمنا الكلام ده، but في a lot of challenges within peace agreement. You need to implement some بنود يعني ما تم تنفيذ له. بس السؤال بتاعي انك بعد ذلك كله بعد كل الاشياء اللي قلتوها دي، اننا كشعب بتاع جنوب السودان يعني نعرف شنو مثلا في situation اللي قاعد يعمل basic tool leader بتاع او حكومه واحده وطنيه في جنوب السودان. موضوع بتاع انتهاء البيس اجريمنت في 2023، موضوع بتاع election، على ايشو بتعلق باللاجئين والنازيين. هل هم هيعملوا شنو في الموضوع دي عشان الشعب بتاع الجنوب يقدر يشوف خيارات اخرى بالنسبه للسيتويشن قاعد يتعلق بموضوع بتاع الوضع السياسي في جنوب السودان؟ نمبر 2، البيس اجريمنت ده الزمن بتاعه الاسف المتبقي ده، هل ممكن يعملوا لنا لاو على اساس انه نقدر نكمل كل الاجيال المتبقي؟ الاسف حاليا قال يعمل فيز لاطراف بتاع اتفاق السلام عشان يقدر ينفذ كل المشاكل المتعلقه بتنفيذ الاتفاقيه. انا دايرك انت تعمل لنا اجابه ونقدر نفهم كيف نقدر نعمل تمارين على اساس انه تو ليدر بين الكلام اللي هم قالوا الاثنين انه ما بيقدر يخلوا البلد عشان يرجع للحرب مره اخرى. ثانك يو. شكرا.
All right, thank you so much, Aterbang, and all your questions, and those who are asking why he is hiding his camera. And because of the network in South Sudan, it's not good. So if he use the video and the audio at the same time, it can just frozen and you will never hear him. That's why he cover his camera such that the audio will work like what you are doing in Clubhouse. Now it's easier than doing in the StreamYard or in the Facebook Live. So answering those who are asking why he put himself off the camera. Coming to the questions raised, I will give it to you, Edmund, to answer them. And then some of the people on in the StreamYard as well, they can comment as well. Go ahead.
Thank you. Let me start with the second person who asked my identity. Maybe I need to make a clear disclaimer. I'm neither government, I'm neither opposition. I'm a South Sudanese. I have the constitutional right to play my civic responsibility. My title, I head a national NGO called Committee Empowerment for Progress Organization, SEPO. I'm executive director. And yes,
listen,
wait, I'm answering you. Listen,
it's coming, it's coming.
I'm coming. I hope you have the culture of dialogue. I wish you are in diaspora, you entertain the culture of dialogue and respecting one's opinion. When you're questioning, I didn't interrupt you. Can I answer you? I don't want to interrupt me. Can I answer you?
You wait. He's answering you. It's coming. It's coming to conclusion.
I hope the culture of tolerance and respecting opinion and giving space of dialogue is being embracing with our fellow colleagues, South Sudanese in diaspora. We normally feel that diaspora are more socialized and more oriented than us at home in terms of how do we entertain culture of dialogue and respect of one another opinion, because dialogue is the best. So let me answer my role. I'm one of the civil society who participated in the negotiation of the agreement right from 2013 until now. So, and I'm signatory. If you have a copy of the agreement, go to the agreement, look under the stakeholders, you will find my name there, Edmond Yakani, civil society. I sign on behalf of the organization I'm heading. So I'm not a government. I'm not supporting government. I will tell the government what is wrong, what is right. I'm not supporting opposition. So my role is that I'm a South Sudanese, I'm a citizen. I have full the rights to answer any question and to do everything. I don't think that you can sanction me on whatever you have. I don't think that you really need to sanction me, but you need to know my role. So don't assume I represent voice of anybody. I sit as a civil society activist. I'm legally registered, and I'm one of the negotiators of the peace agreement. Anyway, I'd like to tell you that I know what exactly in the mindset of all the players. You are mentioning them, whoever you are supporting them. I know their weakness. I know their strengths. I've been with them in the hotels. So I've been telling them what they're doing will never take this country. And I stand firm as a citizen. I'll still call for this country have opportunity of becoming a great country, regardless of what ideologies people have that they are using. So I'd like to answer the second one, that don't get frightened or don't level me in anywhere. And you can access me. I can give you my contacts, whatever you want to access me. If you have any suspiciousness, you can. And you can do a background check anyway from other sources to know who I am, whether I'm pro-government or I'm pro-opposition, I'm from everything. But for me, I'm a civil activist that stands that this country, regardless of ethnic dominance, ethnic affiliations, a particular group want to impose their ideology on the others, I don't support that. I support on constitutional governance, where citizens' rights is above any interest of any political establishment. That's the background I'm coming from. So I hope I've answered you, and you know my identity, who I am. Coming to the first caller, I think the first caller question is very good, because if you look the way how His Excellency President started the nation address, he started with chapter 5, and he asked a question, why he started with chapter 5 and the other question. I think chapter 5 is one of the chapters that it sets the benchmark of international, or what do you call, friends of South Sudan's ambitions around transitioning the country of South Sudan from violence to peace. And I think the calculation was that let's start with the interest of our friends in this agreement and interest of the friends, and specifically, if you allow me to refer to, I will refer to as a Troika group, They want to see justice and accountability prevail. And as like our colleague who was making an opinion from Bor about the question of justice and accountability, how the procedures look like, the procedures should not be tempered with one particular person's opinion, should be an institutional process, should be a legislative process, like what our colleague from Bor have explained. I think the idea is that let's start with chapter 5, whoever advisors are, so that we buy the interests of our friends, whom we can term them as international or regional friends, so that they can put that here. So I think that's the calculation of the beginning of the address of the president, and the language of also accountability, justice, we cannot fear, we are committed to it, is sending a message that we'll never fear accountability and justice. We're going for there. But of course, always there's a statement that if you don't walk the talk, then whatever you're talking, it does not hold water. So it's a question of we need to walk the talk of chapter 5. As my brothers have said, that even the process of healing, reconciliation, the hybrid court, the compensation, reparation authority requires political will for it to take its institutional way of being executed or being implemented. So I'd like to say that first, my statement there. And he also asked that the president say the peace implementation is in track. And my analysis based on chapter 1 and chapter 2 shows that the peace agreement is not in track. The peace agreement implementation is below expectation. For if I have to go into details, under chapter 1, the national government political structures are partially established. The executive organ was established, the legislative was established. Independent commissions at national level were not established, so it's partial. Reconstitution of certain institutions, for example, political party council, the National Election Commission, the Peace Commission, there are about 13 national institutions that need to be reconstituted. They're not reconstituted. The legislation that has supposed to undergone reforms, those legislations are not based undergone reforms. On top of them is the Political Party Act, the Electoral Act for those who want to embrace elections. Without reforming the National Political Party Act, National Electoral Act, without reconstituting the National Political Party Council, National Election Council, you really can't go to elections, because those laws on those institutions need to be in conformity with the provisions of the agreement as enshrined in terms of institutional and policy reforms. So those are some of the things that my brother was saying. So here, what I'd like to say is that the implementation of the agreement is below expectations. And we have seen an extension, and they couldn't deliver. So what I'd like to say is that why I concentrate on chapter 1 and chapter 2, and specifically chapter 2, because chapter 2 is now the deadlock. Chapter 2 cannot allow us to move any steps until you have unified forces. For those who are asking for elections, you can't have elections if you don't have a unified army that pay allegiance to the constitution, rather than allegiance to individuals or allegiance to political parties. If we go for election now without these institutions like the security being put in a right order, we will likely clash. During campaign, 2 bodyguards of 2 campaigning political officers, one they disagree over a bottle of beer in a bar during campaign, can be declared as a national war. It's a matter of one shooting the gun to the other over disagreement of a bottle of beer. It's become a national war. So that is a problem why chapter 2 is a principle. That's why every person, whether regional, international, or national, still remind the principle that take chapter 2. So for me, that is the element of why when I started analysis, I refer to chapter 2, because the tension we have now, one of the callers asked, there's a 3 times around the house of the first vice president. That shows stability, that shows no return to war. That is frightening. That's frightening. And that has made statements coming out that the life of the first vice president is under threat because of the presence of those tanks. And why tanks? If really we feel that we trust each other and we are in peace implementation. Those are the facts that somebody like me, I like to put that until you withdraw those tanks out, until you unify the forces, because as we're speaking now, we have more than 2 commanders-in-chief. His Excellency President is Commander-in-Chief for SSPDF. First Vice President is Commander-in-Chief for the IO, and we have other commanders-in-chief under SOA. And don't forget that somebody like Minister of Higher Education, Samson Chang, is a commander-in-chief of his forces, something Federal Democratic Party that have also political, and his commander-in-chief right now, they're not being unified. And don't forget, Bakasor, even if he defected to the SPLM, he still is the commander-in-chief of the forces that he represents. Under SOA, there's one number of commander-in-chiefs. And that's why if you see one of the governors during the 5th Governors Forum, like Governor of Western Equatoria, Futuyo, have asked them, how comes we have 2 men commanders-in-chief and 2 men chief of staff? How do you administer the country? And he raised a question in the Governors Forum that have drawn public attention, and that really what he's saying is sense. And that's why chapter 2 is critical to implement that. So chapter 5, it is the darling chapter of some friends in the international community. And that's why they started with this, so that we have the attention. Let's tell them we're committed, we're doing that. But of course, as saint, always the truth is when you walk the talk that you say. Otherwise, it does not hold anything. That would like to bring into that. And he asked why, when the Kitigwan were in classes, there was no withdrawal of IO from the security forces, and why they move to when there's a classes in the side of Pagak and Joko, and there's a withdrawal of there. The question comes is that the continuous violation of the permanent ceasefire and the continuous defections is somehow offering a bit of a threat to the strength of the SPLMIO. And that's what they have to show, that enough is enough. And specifically, the latest clashes that are happening around Pagak, around Mayud, around Lengochuk have gone to a trend that it become a complete full-scale, full-fledged civil war between the two forces of the IO and the SPD, and that's why they withdraw. But the question comes is that the defection is weakening the IO, and also because, for me, you know, let me bring something here, my brothers and sisters in TS. One thing that I start building, that actually we are turning now the barrel of the gun as a source of livelihood. Some of this fighting on the ground, this is my personal opinion, some of these commanders on the ground are fighting for the livelihood. Because if they shoot 6-7 bullets and 7 artilleries, they'll ask for about at least $4 million or 4 million SSP or $1,000, 2,000 sent to us on the ground. We're at risk, and they get money, and that money they earn their living. So actually, fighting is becoming a source of livelihood, which is completely bad. It means we're going to the situation of Somalia where fighting becomes of life, because if you don't fight, your superior will not send you money. So when you fight, your superior sends you money. Even defection becomes a source of livelihood. It's no longer really genuine that you have the principle, because where are you defecting? If you're under one government, you defect from A to B, you find the person you hate in B is still there. You defect from C to X, the person defect from X is still there. So what is the meaning of these defections, if we're to be genuine and honest to ourselves? So we need to commit ourselves to national values, that this country requires us to change our political attitudes. We need to forget our ethnic politics. We need to forget loyalty to individuals. We need to show loyalty to the Constitution and make the Constitution as a system of governance that South Sudanese are above that. That's what I like to answer. And the question my colleague have asked in Arabic, هل في إرادة سياسية لتنفيذ اتفاقية عشان ما يكون في عودة للحرب؟ أنا أتأكد إنه يوم 10 شهر 12 2013 نفس الرسالة كان جاء من الرئيس، وكيل رجال الدين مشى قبل الرئيس قال لك احنا شايفين بينك ونايبة في ظاهرة كلاشات، وزي انه بينكم في نوع من اختلافات حصلت، واحنا خايفين كرجال الدين انه اختلافات ده هرجعوا بلد ده للحرب. رجال الدين طلعوا من اجتماع الرئيس قال لك احنا قبلنا الرئيس ونايب الاول قال لك حالاتهم جيده ما عندهم اي اختلاف ولا حرجوا للحرب. حصل شنو؟ بعد 4 ولا 5 يوم مشى يكرون للمؤتمر حق الحركه الشعبيه النار ولع. يبقى انه كلمه انه ما في عوده للحرب ده ما بنتاكد الا بنتاكد بالامال. يعني اماله حقه ما باكد لنا امال انهم بيتعاملوا في النشاط ما بيرجعوا بلد للحرب كده بنقول امين ان فعلا هم بيرجعوا بلد للحرب، لكن امال حقهم عكس الكلام. بس كده قلت انه الحقيقه دايما بيسهر في الامال. لما نقول انه ما بنخلي البلد يرجع للحرب او ما في عوده للحرب، امال حقنا يتاكد انه كل نشاط حقنا بيتاكد انه بنتامل في امال ما بيرجعوا بلد للحرب. لكن مثلا لو في تحديات في نوع من توزيعات عساكر، توزيع الجيش في بعض من المناطق، في بعض من البيوت، حول البعض من الشخصيات، يبقى إن سؤال بيسأل نفسه هل في ثقة تامن بيناتنا كأفراد الوقع اتفاقية عايزين نفس الاتفاقية ده بدون أي اختلاف بدون أي عودة للحرب؟ يبقى إنه كلمة عودة للحرب ده وفجأة واحد نتأكد لكل الجنوبيين عودة للحرب. أنا بديكم مثال مثلا في 2016 وكان حرب جيوان ولع، ده كان لقاني في فندق في اسمه جوبا ريجنسي. I was in جوبا ريجنسي هوتيل، وكان اختلاف بسيط جدا. يعني انا بديكم مثال في جنوب السودان ده لو في عسكري ايو وفي عسكري SSPDF اختلفوا في الصحن في المطعم ده بيكون حرب الوطن. يعني اختلاف حقهم بس ان واحد دق ذكيره معلومه عشان ياك والله مجموعه فلان دق ذكيره لفلان ده خلاص ده بقى حرب. يبقى انا مشكلتي انه السياسيين حقنا لابد يحصل بالنسبه لهم تغيير للسلوك السياسي عشان انه كلمه انه ما في عوده للحرب ده بتاكد لنا بتمن لنا انه بدينا طمانينه انه فعلا احنا ما هنرجع للحرب. لكن مشكلتنا انه الامال حقهم عكسي تماما، وبالذات كل ما تجي الساعه 6 بالليل بتلقى حركات بتتغير. بنهار احنا كويسين يعني جبال مدينه جوبا during the daytime were so nice. As now evening is arriving, everybody is panicking. And as evening is arrived, civilians are getting to the houses, uniforms are coming to the streets. And that's challenging. And of course, President have said that one is a practice in every country, simply because there's a criminals that may turn things around and they may convert the country to violence. But we hope that that should be under a consensus deployment that we are told. And we hope that the address of the president, as we said, is a very good move, that is to check the country. But we hope that they should respect what they say and they should tell us what they say. That's what I like to say. With regard to elections and the timeline, my brothers and sisters, if we want to go for elections, here are the following actions that we need to have in place before having elections. Yes, one, I'd like to assure, we have case studies where elections are conducted without census. We have case studies where elections are conducted in the face of the violence. Look at Libya, look at Iraq, look at somewhere. There are those case studies. Now, when it comes to the case of South Sudan, you cannot conduct elections in South Sudan if you did not review the Political Party Act. And the review have to be enacted by a parliament that represent all the political parties by considering, okay, we have enacted this particular review, National Political Party Act. If you don't reconstitute the National Political Party Council, you can't go for election. If you don't review the National Election Law, and if you don't reconstitute the National Election Commission, these are two policy and two institutions that have direct link with elections. You need to review them and you need to reconstitute the institutions. That's very important. Secondly, we cannot go for elections when you have these different command institutions of security institutions in the country. That today, let me ask you, is it easy for one party to go and campaign in the opponent side while the soldiers in the opponent side does not have command of this particular campaign? Campaign is going to be problematic. And that's what we're saying. One of the preconditions for us to have election is to have a unified force, so that when people go to campaign, you don't fear the forces on the ground or don't fear about your safety and your security. So those are the benchmarks. The timeline we have now, is it enough for elections? Let us give the electoral calendar. We are now in April. In the 1 month's time, we're going to have rain. And remember, IGAD Climate Authority have issued a scientific statement that South Sudan is going to witness a sharp increase in amount of the rain. The eastern side of the country is going to witness heavy rains, and the western side of the country is going to witness a drop in the amount of rain. So it means when come rain season, with the infrastructure we have, where it's very hard to move, we only have few roads. How are we going to do electoral campaign, civic education? So the practical logistical challenge on the ground tell us that it's not easy to conduct elections. Now the question comes. The agreement is expiring on 22nd February next year, which we're left with 8 months or 7 months to go now. What is next? Are we going to extend the agreement? Extension for what? Since we've extended for a long period and they have not been implemented. So it's a question which is, for me, as a citizens, we need to start raising our concerns. If come time the agreement expires, legitimacy of the government, will one party declare overriding legitimacy over the others as the signatory to the agreement, or will all the parties say now we're all legitimate and then allow us, we need to reconcile us? These are questions that are logical that we need to answer. We need to answer them. And that's why right now some people are believing that some of these tensions are tactful ways of calling tension.
Edmund, we got a question here as well from stream here, Jack Laruba, Hindu Sawal Henebugulu. Has there been any immediate response from IGAD, AU,
and TRECA
regarding the escalation of this tension? Because you yourself, you were asking for the immediate intervention. I quote that. I read it in different social media over 24 hours ago. That's the reason this guy is asking this question.
Guy asked a question. Okay. Thank you very much. In terms of the institutional implementation of the agreement from regional bodies, IGAD have the primary responsibility under the AU Charter of Subsidiarity. AU back up IGAD. Then TRECA, of course, they have issued a statement. IGAD have responded. Me personally, for the last 3 days, I've been in direct contact with the IGAD special envoy, because the way how IGAD operate in implementing the agreement, IGAD have appointed a special envoy, an ambassador called Ismail Wise from Djibouti. He is to follow the implementation agreement. So when they want, there's a crisis. 2 days ago, when there's a crisis in Pagak and Longochuk, I reached out to him, and quite a number of us have reached out to him. We're in contact with him. He moved from Djibouti, he came to Khartoum the day before yesterday. He met Burhan. Why he met Burhan? Burhan now Sudan is a chair of IGAD. So he met with Burhan, and I'm in interaction with him. In his meeting with Burhan, was calling Burhan to quickly intervene on the situation on the ground. And I'm quite sure Burhan might have communicated with the leadership in Juba. And immediately this morning, Ismail Wise took off from Khartoum. He is in Juba now as we're speaking. He is meeting our leaders one-to-one meeting as a special envoy of IGAD. So I would say IGAD have responded for the intervention. So Ismail Wise, as IGAD special envoy, is now in Juba. I was in contact with him. And also East African Community, Department of Peace and Security, is preparing to respond. I've been in contact with them. I've reached out to Sudan Embassy and Ugandan Embassy here. And Sudan Embassy have confirmed that they have communicated to Khartoum, and Burhan is going to make a call to the leadership in the country. And Uganda is also sending, I think, a delegation of a permanent secretary to come and help. So there's a regional, because why? Let me tell you, my brothers and sisters, I would like to tell you that besides the crisis we're in, let me repeat myself, Juba is a model case study of integration in the continent and in the East African region. So all these countries have their citizens here in our open economy, though we are not gaining from their integrated into economy, but you find that refugees of Ethiopia are not being seen as refugees. They are in the market. They are opening up their shops. So Juba is a good case study of integration. So every neighboring country have a concern over the stability in Juba because it affects their economy in terms of its citizens losing unemployment. Some of them have escaped employment by having jobs here. So there's a response from the region on that. But of course, primarily, even if, this is not what I say, even if Jesus to come live today to South Sudan, specifically from God, entrusted by God to implement an agreement in South Sudan, if our leaders does not respect what Jesus comes from directly from God, will never implement this agreement. It is our leaders who have the responsibility to implement. And for the Christians, the Bible says very clear, God helps who want to help him or herself. So it is us to take that responsibility at the leadership level, of party level, to take this country out of violence to peace. That's what I like to respond, that the regional have responded. I have seen this question about what will happen after unification. Will Dr. Riek Machar still be commander-in-chief? Unification allows president is the only commander-in-chief. And that's part of the problem, by the way. People want to retain titles and ranks. I don't know until grave or until where. Because you need to accept system of governance. All over the world, commander-in-chief is one. All over the world, chief of staff is one. All over the world, director of national security service, internal, external is one. All over the world, IGP for police is one. And that is what we're telling them, that relinquish your sharp appetite for titles and positions, allow the constitution to empower our citizens to tell you who do we need as our leaders. So the only way is stop the violence, bring the country to calm and respect rule of law and respect constitutional, and call for elections where things are stable, and let our vote decide who exactly will be the leader we want. But the people want to relinquish titles. And there's something common here. I will tell you that I've seen the last 2 days. Some leaders, if they are removed from the power, when they campaign, for example, let me give an example of myself. If I'm Edmund today, I jump into the bush, I become a commander-in-chief, I'm promoted as a minister for nonsense affairs in the central government. If I'm dismissed from my minister of nonsense affairs, I will go back to my committee and say, do you know why me, Edmund, in particular, I was dismissed by the president? Because president is against our ethnic group. He's against our tribe. Then you get the job personally, through your personal struggle. When I dismiss, you turn the job to become a community job. You turn the job to be a job of an ethnic group. This is the problem. It's a high time for us. It's a high time for us to stand on the system that it is a citizen who will show us who is to be a leader through a vote politically. At the same time, it's a time to tell us also that if you want to be a civil servant, the laws and the policies of the country will upgrade you to the position you want to reach to. So that's what I would like to bring in terms of our attitudes, that as South Sudanese, we may need to shift our attitudes from too much love for power through shortcuts. Let's go to love for power through honorable and peaceful political process. Because the struggle that we want to make shortcuts to power, it takes us to violation of human rights. We have seen how huge human rights violations are a big issue in our country. whether through what is called communal violence, which sometimes for me, I don't call them communal violence. They're really political motivated violence. Even cattle raiding these days are not normal cattle raiding. They're political motivated cattle raiding that are going on in the country. So all this violence that we're having are no longer as usual as traditionally. They're political motivated. Some people don't use violence as a ladder to power. So for us, from perspective of human rights, as a human rights activist, we like to say that the level of violation of human rights in our country is high. The level of absolute rule of law is high. Why? Because the political games that are going are undermining rule of law, are undermining respect for human rights. And simply because some of us believe that our ethnic group is the best fit to take the leadership. No, it is the vote of the citizen through the constitutional processes that will decide who is to be a leader. And that's why, as intellectuals in this particular platform, it's high time for us to advocate for right things to be done in a right time with right people. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Edmund Yakani. It's a real response you have given out. We appreciate that. You really tried to answer all the questions given to you, and you elaborated more than even some of the people who have the question, and you have already brought into your speech. There is no need of bringing up that question again. For those who have writing down some comments here as the questions, if I ignore it, it's already answered or been delivered. So my colleague, co-host here, Majuk, is still here. Sorry, Flora, just hang on. Let me just finish here in StreamYard. I will go back to you in Clubhouse. Hang on there. Let the people get ready. Majuk, if you have anything to say, just unmute yourself and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chairman Isaac Tian, and to our guest, Mr. Edmund Yakani. Thank you so much for your perspective and how you try to analyze the speech of the national address by the president. To begin with, most of South Sudanese, my brother Edmund, were so eager to hear some of the positive information from the government, especially from the president. And we were so much to be relieved after the national address. If you look at the speech by the president, it is mostly constituted of three parts. The first one was for the president and the government to explain their position in terms of misinformation. Then the second one is basically on accountability, chapter 5, I mean. And then the last one was the numerous press which were given out by SPLM-IO. By the look of the entire documents, which constitute 4 pages, some of the citizens did not hear what they ought to hear, because we were looking at the current crisis. What was the genesis of the attack that happened in Upper Nile, especially on the cantonment side? We were very eager to hear from the president. We were also eager to hear from the president what have they done in regard to the striker condemnation letter, which was published on 23rd of this month. And IGAD also in that press redirect IGAD to investigate who is behind the attack. But we did not hear anything about that. Number 3, we were also very eager to hear from the president to clarify some of the allegations or the press which were published by the SPLM-IO. his first vice president, Dr. Riek Machar. But we did not hear anything of that kind. We were also to hear something in regard to why the president and his deputy communicated via letters instead of calling meetings, meeting their offices, and discuss one-on-one. I was expecting to hear that from the president. How come people who are neighbors being divided by only one road cannot even meet and discuss? But they always discuss the issues on the public domain through letters and press. My brother Edmund, all this press that these people are giving out, especially the ILO, sometimes cause the panic and fear among the citizens of the country. And if social media always take things the way they want, then they make it to be a big deal to the world communities. But for our leaders to avoid this, I recommend and suggest it's better for them to sit down and talk one-on-one instead of writing your own press in your room or in your office and post it on social media. Now we have had the nation address. My questions is one, because one question has already been asked. Do you think, as an activist, that the national address made today by the president will diffuse and neutralize the conflict or the tensions in Juba and in the countryside? Under which magnitude will this press neutralize the tension in the country? Secondly, we were so eager to see the first Vice President, Dr. Riek, jointly together with the President, address our nation so that we can hear the two voices. While the President was about to deliver the nation address, the first Vice President, Dr. Riek, rolled out another press detailing what has transpired for the last night and how the heavy posts have been deployed around the street of Juba. And if we remember very keenly, this is how 2016 started. And this is how 2013, 2014 started. I cannot blame citizens. If any president said you don't need to panic, then citizens have much to fear, because this is how things started for the last 5 years. And citizens are still now paying the consequences of the war which they were never willing to fight. As activists and South Sudanese on Clubhouse and also on Facebook, we need to read these documents, the press of the president, critically, and look at the 4 documents, the press which were given out by the IO for the last 2 weeks, and read out the condemnation letter from Tiger. Then from there we can make the conclusion whether the country will be in peace for the next 2 months or not. Up to this juncture, I can say, my brother, citizens are not yet convinced, and the fear is still in them, because they have known whose they are, especially their leaders. Thank you so much. I can allow you here to answer that question. And also I'll give chance to other South Sudanese who want also to channel in their views in regard to the today press. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayuk. Edmund, go ahead. And Flora, stand by. Prepare the people. We are almost to close down. Just the last people who will ask question after response of Edmund to Mayuk. We will go to Clubhouse, and then if we get some comments here that need to be answered, we will deliver them here, and that's it. We will be closing. Go ahead, Edmund.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the observation of our brother over the words he raised it up. What I'd like to say, telling the truth is always bitter. And that's why you see the two statements that come from His Excellency the President and the first Vice President. If you see these statements, is somehow detailing contradictions in the way how to define what have happened in the last 2 or 3 days across the country and in Juba. And they share a position that none of us is ready to go for war, while if you look at their statements, indicators that the country is going back to war is very high. So the silency of the president on the attacks is something that is specifically, he answered the way how when journalists asked him about the presence of uniformed guys on the street, and he didn't say, we deploy them because we have mistrust, or because we don't believe that IO is going to be in peace and we feel like we need to show our strength if IO want to misbehave. That's not his answer. His answer is that Juba is like any other city. Presence of uniformed guys can be anywhere because anybody can take advantage of the situation to that. So he deliberately escaped that. Why? Because if you want to answer the question around the attacks or the continuous violations of the peace agreement, then you need to go back and ask why is defection being embraced and who is embracing defections and why defections are not condemned right from day one. Of course, people like us who have been saying defections are offering a threat to the agreement this less than 6 months ago, and now has come reality that defectors are becoming threatening the peace and tranquility of the public, and even the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement as a framework to take the country from violence to peace. And simply because answering the question, what is happening now, why deployment, it has direct link with why are you not respecting the security arrangements. And one of the actions that demonstrate that's not respect security arrangements is really the element of defectors that are defecting, as other colleagues have mentioned before. So we could have wished to hear that reason, but that reason has been dodged. One journalist tried to trigger it through questions, but it was dodged the answer to that. And simply, my opinion is that the biggest issue is that spoilers around the president and the first vice president are too many, but at the same time also is that commanders on the ground are taking advantage of using violence as their livelihood, because if they don't fight, they don't get the income. If they fight, they get the income. And that's one thing that field commanders have got as an opportunity of earning income from the principals by entertaining that. And one thing we expect, and this one thing that I've made a call before the address of the nation through contacts that I know have ears of the president, say, I hope that they can sanction defection, because we didn't have sanction defection, and I hope that they could have called the field commanders to refrain from confrontation, and they can call ceasefire to hold, and they should summon the field commanders of both IO and SSPDF to come to Juba and be held accountable on what they have done as a violation of permanent ceasefire. That one didn't happen. Of course, that does not mean that it's something that is by mistake, it's deliberate, and of course, we know why that didn't go. And the question around the speech of the president, will it make citizens gain trust and confidence and not return for the war? I would say really, it is when the speech is translated to an action, then that's why citizens get. Up to now, people still have the memory of before 2013 crisis, when the religious leaders met both of them, and when they said they're not intention. Later on, we see dismissal of the first vice president, withdrawal of delegated powers, and then in 2013, we go for crisis. And we have seen in 2016, similar things that have been approached. They say, no, we're not going to back to war, but J1 break off. So citizens have evidence at hand that saying we're not ready to go for war is not enough until action is demonstrated, until when forces are no longer in the streets, until the two are able to meet, the two are able to come to public saying together, and then say, okay, somehow there's a regained trust and confidence that we're not going for war. But as long as they're exchanging communication through press releases, that's where the problem is. If they don't come together and address the nation together, or have a meeting of face-to-face and work out that meeting and address the nation. That's always, remember, in 2016, the beginning is that they have to come and address the nation together. So we expect them to be together, and we hope that at least tomorrow, there's a meeting of the presidency and they can address the nation after this exchange of statements between His Excellency the President and the first Vice President. But one thing that also I feel is an opportunity, if we really have leaders, the IO only walk away from security mechanisms. The parliament is still functional. If our parliamentarians really want to commit themselves for the best interest of the citizens and the country, and they don't want to show allegiance to the political loyalty to the parties they belong to, I wish our parliamentarians tomorrow should raise a parliamentary motion. It's something that tonight we're going to do some calls for some parliamentarians that they should raise a motion and question the parties if they really want to act as a parliamentarian that are independent as parliament is expected in the world. But this comes with a level of confidence that parliamentarians have towards the functionality of their role as a parliamentarian versus their interest of loyalty to the parties, to the individual that brought them to the parliament. If they can take up, I think the parliament should act. We're going to see a move from the parliament and the Council of States to really call for calm and to call the two leaders to call ceasefire to hold, because there's there's no call for ceasefire to hold, whether from first Vice President's statement or from President's statement, means the option of confrontation is still there. That's one thing that I like to bring to the attention that comes up. So the speech of the president and the statement of the vice president is not enough for winning citizen trust and confidence that still tensions is being de-escalated. We can de-escalate tension when the two are addressed, when the two come together. That's one thing that I like to bring to the answer. And the question of why the two leaders are neighbor to each other, actually it's not the road who divide them. They're divided by Wanega. Between the first vice president, the vice president is Vice President Wanega. When you hope that Wanega would have been a charter, you can go to the house of the first vice president, let's have a tea, go to the president, let's have a tea. So please, let's rescue the nation, because they're not very far from each other. They're really neighbors to each other. And only two houses of former IGP Piang and Wanega divide the two. I think, and Piang is also one of the renowned leaders during the liberation. The two could have played a big role between the two, but the two tend to communicate through statements, which I think is a bit disturbing, is a bit destabilizing the country. And also I've seen the increase of sharp exchange of statements between the two military spokespersons for IU and for SSPDF. And the one of SSPDF president said what he said is a personal, it's not the position of the SSPDF high command. And that put the spokesperson to a very challenging position about that statement he made, or that they are in war with IU. So he went declaring war before even the command council declared. So for me, it's a big question of attitudes that we need to address right now to bring stability. So the calm will come only when there's no more presence uniform on the streets, and the calm will be realized when the two are speaking and the two are meeting together. The calm will be realized if the cantonment sites are back to their actual description for the agreement and graduation is going ahead. And the calm will come if you don't see exchange of statements between the forces, as long as they can exchange statements. And we should expect more increase in statements after the address of the nation and after the release. So we hope that they too can meet tomorrow and address the nation jointly and come to a public gallery together and discipline those who are entertaining confrontation among that and sanctioning defection. Somebody's asking about the position of the SSPDF. My real concern is that the leaders of SSPDF will need to take a decision, because otherwise all these violations will be accounted against the SSPDF in terms of ceasefire violations, because defectors are now problematic and the defectors are under the umbrella of the SSPDF, because all defectors will declare allegiance to SSPDF. But still, we have the opportunity, besides these challenges, we have the opportunity to fix the country and to put it right if we change our political attitudes, and if we believe that the peace and stability for South Sudanese is a primary objective of why we have various leadership positions. If we take that stand, if the leaders take that stand, then we have high opportunity of putting things right. It is not a case that only we are facing it. Some countries are facing it, but some countries have taken primary responsibility of fixing things. So for me, the ball is back to the hands of His Excellency President, First Vice President, to show the nation no return to war by an action, no return to war by working together, no return to war by committing themselves to deliver the provision of the revitalized agreement from chapter 1 up to chapter 6, that they work for it. Otherwise, still the country is feeling frightened until the two shows an action that peace and stability is a priority. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Edmund Yakani. It's a good reply. Sister Flora, I can see only a few people there. I don't know. Madunanyar is asleep now because it's really, really very late in his time zone. And Denkamis and Aliaba.
I have a question.
All right.
Okay, you can go ahead, Aliaba.
Go ahead. Ask
Also,
your
my
question.
question is going to the guest in the legacy media. How will Salva Kiir and Riek Machar going to have election in 2023? And Riek Machar cannot go to Barkata to consult it with election. And Brother Kiir cannot go to Apanal because these two enemies are not like it. Either in Apanal, either in Barkata, are all Equatorian. They are right over there with some material. While other opposition are still outside in the bush. Tell me here, my brother, I will listen.
That's a very good question. Thank you so much, Aliabai. You are not Aliabai, you are just a Jwirbai. In fact, let me just give it to Edmund to wrap it up. Because
obviously this is the reality. This is the reality. How do you want to go for elections? That certain parts of the country, you describe them as part of my enemy, and I'm not trusted to go there. And that's why I'm saying, are we go for real democratic elections, or are we going for tribal confirmed elections? Because we go for elections that I go to my community and say, I'm the only one, I'm the powerful one with the military, I have the money, and I'm one of the top struggler for the independence, confirm me, I'm going to the parliament, and confirm this one going to the state, and confirm this going to the county. I will go for that elections, because elections is sweet when you campaign across the country, when whole cities in the country have the right to question you for your position, and specifically position like presidency. You need to have campaign of presidency across the country. You open public debates. You are questioned by different constituents of the citizens, youth, women, religious leaders, activists, traders. You move across the country, you feel free, people embrace you, and you feel that the nation is behind my ideology for contesting, or my manifesto for contesting for presidency. That's how beauty of presidential elections are. But the way he described, where will they go? Will they really move across the country? Are we not only going like, okay, the elections we're going now, I send my delegates to campaign on behalf of me from that particular community. So do we go for elections, campaign where you use delegates? I think the reality that we're going to have election 2013 is not there. The reality is that we need to fix things to an order in order for go for credible and free and non-violent elections. Otherwise, elections will be a trigger of returning back to violence if we rush without well preparation. We're not saying no election, but say have a prepare well preparation, well prepared processes to allow the election to take its shape as required by democratic principle, or by whatever you can describe it as a credible election and peaceful and non-violent.
Thank you so much. You answered it quite very good. Sister Flora, do you have anything to say? Denkamis, Wilson, Madunanya, are you awake or you guys are sleeping?
I think Wilson is asleep. Denkamis?
I am awake, yes.
I will take just only one question from Clubhouse, and then we will be closing. I will go back to read some comments here in the stream here. Yeah, Denkamis, welcome.
Yes, Denkamis, go ahead. I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Flores and Isaac Wilson, the moderators. I appreciate you, the legislative media. I do not have a question, by the way. I'm going to make some remarks based on the president update today. It's not going to be that long. First of all, I am actually appreciating our Excellency, the President, President Salva Kiir, for the update. That's what we're always looking for as a citizen. I encourage all the surrounding cabinet that work with him and the security organs to update us on the time, so the citizens know exactly what's going on in the country. Even though if they can do it once a week, it would be good. It would be a good update. So for us not to be panicked. That's one I can say. I appreciate what they did this time, and I'm encouraging them to do it, to keep updating us. Second, the office of the president and around the country, the governors, the government surrounding, they are not actually active on updating the citizen all the time if incident happens. Imagine in Jonglei State, where I came from, that need the government of that state to update us, to update the citizen, what is going on, and how they're going to tackle that security issues. That's one thing. My last one here is my comment to the security organs in the country. They have to take their job seriously. They have to take their job seriously. There is some loophole that people commit crime within the country and they run away to another countries, and those people become a headache. They are not contributing anything to the citizen. Always violent, inciting tribal war. That's a lack of security. If they are out there, they have to take their work serious. That's a question to the security organs. Back to ourselves, we discussed this last night in our page here on Clubhouse. We discussed on government supporters page, and we addressed all these issues that the president came up with this morning, and I believe it would be good for us to keep ourselves in touch. That's one. The question of is the country going back to war? That's not. It shouldn't be a relevant question all the time. What I know, what we should be asking ourselves: are we ready? Are we ready to implement peace? Are we ready to embrace peace? Are we ready to push our leaders to bring peace to our nation? That's a relevant question we should be asking ourselves as a citizen, instead of asking a war if the war is going to be there. Or my wood is if there is active war there, you can participate and you will see how good it is to be in war field. So that's my comment there. As a citizen of South Sudan, we all have to question our instability in the country, how to bring peace. That's all the imminent question we should have all the time instead of questioning the position of war. We're not supporting war, and we have to embrace peace and go for the election to change the government that you don't like. Thank you. I think that's all I can say for now. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I want another question to throw it in so that you can go and conclude that. All opposition outside in the clubhouse, they are saying Denga problem, and the government given the government for Denga. I will go and address that and let my chair. That's all I can tell you, my brother. Thank you. God bless you.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Denka Miss, and thank you, Aliabai, which is Kennedy, for your comments and your questions. What I would like to add in before I allowed Edmund to finalize, such that he can answer what he heard, and we will finalize with his final remarks. And now we are coming down for the closure. I would like to make some few remarks here. For some who are writing the comments which are negatives here, the campaign that you people are doing here is you need to look to the situation, the environment, that what you are saying is suitable. But if you just come and get the people sitting and doing some certain thing, and you come with a different thing and you want to pour in it, it doesn't look good. But I respect you, my brother. Just keep your words with you. We are not here for separation. We are not here for what, and whatever you have been writing, I just warn you, keep it with you. Matianganyor, as you stated, is a militia. Why they are not in the training center like the Riek Machar army? White army and Matianganyor were trained and graduated, and they were arms. White army, they were never been given money training center that they went through and they were arms and do these things. No. So I'm not going to answer all what you have been writing here. I will not answer it. Thank you. I will say thank you and I'm sorry also at the same time. What the president has meant before, the two biggest animal, there's the biggest animal in the river or in the water and the biggest animal in the bush, which is elephant. And we have hippopotamus in the river. So one day, something or animal called fox came up with an idea. He came with a rope, went and looked for the elephant and said that I got my animal or a cow got stuck in the river here. Can you pull it out for me, please? I know you are very strong and all the thing. I believe some of you here have read this story. I think it's in English of East African Standard books. I read it long time ago. I cannot remember very well. And then he went to the river and called hippopotamus and said that I got my cow stuck here. I need to be pulled out. And you are one of the strongest animal here in this river. The hippopotamus accepted, put the rope on him. So, and then he said that when I said peep, you just start pulling. So he came in the middle and said that peep and the elephant and hippopotamus, they start pulling each other. And elephant is pulling hippopotamus out of the water, and hippopotamus is pulling hippo into the water. And this fight went on long and long. And who is suffering is the grass and the water and all these things where they are standing from. This is what is happening. We in the social media, including myself, let me just count it as, let me just put it this we of us generally, we are the one who fueling what is happening in South Sudan, because we the supporters of Mr. X and supporters of Mr. Y, they go out so with the different stories. When you get a piece of the information, you just go and add in your word and you trigger it. And this is where the tragedies occur. So please, let's unite it and unite behind our leaders implementing this peace. We come together as the South Sudanese. Unity is the strength.
Battery low.
So
Power off.
We cannot do anything that can help anymore. So that's the message that I put as a conclusion. Mr. Edmund, I will allow you to give your final remarks and answering if you need to make some to answer some of the words of analysis of our brother Deng Kamis and Aliabai, who is the Kennedy Deng. You can just go ahead and we finalize here. And I really salute my sister Flora for the time she has taken to control Clubhouse and all more than 500 people who was watching in Clubhouse. I have to say thank you so much for coming up and listen to the analysis of what is happening. It's a panicking to all of us when we hear there is a tension going on in our country. Whether you are in or out, we also fear. We don't need another bloodshed to happen. Edmund, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, my brother. I would like to start by raising a concern that one of the biggest problems that we're suffering from as South Sudanese in our country in particular, it is when we start building ethnic centralism on every single opinion and every aspect of governance. What do I mean? It's when we want to impose our ethnicity as a principle of analysis, as a principle of zeroing conclusion of what we think national governance is. So if we want to govern ourselves as a nation, tribes that God have given us should be for jubilation rather than for controlling and for suppressing others, or for using it as a political ticket that gives one access to power. So I'd like to say that in this platform, if there are supporters of Woye, there are supporters of Viva, there are supporters of Take a Boom, change your political attitudes, embrace constitutional governance, and communicate to your leadership that this country is above any ideology and any ethnic sort of like dominance aspect. South Sudan can't be a nation by an ethnic hegemony or dominance. At the same time, South Sudan can't be a nation by struggling that access to power have to be in a violent way. That one, we can't move anywhere. Let's respect ourselves, how small other groups, how small others are, how big you are, how much. So we need to move away from that culture to culture of where let merits determine us in governing ourselves. And that one, we shall have a blessed South Sudan that we won in the same way when we struggled from 1983 in the bushes, should be the same way we need to run public institutions. Otherwise, if we want to shift from the culture of how we struggle for independence in the bushes in 1983, where we ate with mosquitoes equally, and we want to leave others outside, then that one we can't go. So the question is, we need to have political movement and political establishments that are based on ideology, rather than based on certain clique of groups that want to come. And specifically, that's for one of the biggest problems we have in the country, that our leaders, how much they're educated, ethnicity influence behind them, to really pull them back from using constitution and from using democratic principle to administer us. So I'd like to tell supporters of Woye, supporters of Viva, supporters of Take the Boom, that go back to your leaders and tell them that we need to have political attitudes where we embrace constitutional governance, where we respect others and we give them opinion. That's what I'd like to say. That's my first take in terms of the other comments that has come out from the other people. That's all to say. Coming to the social media, one of our biggest problems is that, and I've been having a platform where I'm doing tracking of social media. I will tell you my findings that in the last 2 days, the social media contributed over 60% of misinformation on what's happening on the reality. Some of the social media players should go back and see now official statements that are coming from the parties. It contradicts their analysis. It contradicts the messages they're sending out. You can see there's a statement coming official from IO that contradicts some of the people who say we are supporters of IO. There's a statement coming from the president, sometimes contradicts those who say we are supporters of the president. And one of the things that I would like to say to social media, whether in diaspora or in country, my always problem is that I like to raise is that ask yourself, before you post the message, did you ask yourself, is this message going to fuel, or this message is going to sort out, offer solutions? If your message is going to fuel crisis, abstain yourself from that. If your message is constituting hate speech, abstain. If your message is hostile propaganda, abstain. Because why? You come to realize that your message may create a tension among communities or among forces that may lead to a war, and your message may contribute to a situation where somebody like a child may lose the parents, and this child may have nowhere to go. The future is ending up because her parents have died because of the message. So I'd like to say that let's take responsibility in using the social media, whether we're in country or outside. I don't level a specific group where it's saying diaspora or something everywhere, but I'd like to say, if you are acting, don't act in a tribal way. I like there's one time Adog Nyaba was challenging us that some of us are thinking tribally in addressing national issues. So if you're thinking tribally, please put a tribe somewhere, go for a tribal community meeting. That is not South Sudan. We're not to come to South Sudan, look at the constitution, look at the laws, look at the system of governance and address South Sudan. That, I like my brother what you say about some people who are fueling and start using certain connotations that just want to trigger. That's one thing I like to bring. And of course, there's a respect of opinion. There's a respect of opinion. Otherwise, if there's no respect of opinion, then we couldn't have Judas Iscariot among the disciples of Jesus Christ that come and betray. So some of us are born to betray the cost of the nation. And once you're among those who betray the cost of the nation, I would like to tell you, sir, please, it is good that you need to take responsibility now. My call is South Sudan is above everybody's interests. And it's a time that we must embrace each other. Some of you are thinking in the theory of the animal farm that all animals are equal and some are more equal than others. I would like to say that theory have ended a long time ago. Its generation have gone. We are now a generation where South Sudan is our heart, South Sudan is our blood. As we sing our national anthem, we don't belong to one particular group. My message is that stand up as a nationalist and stand up for the nation. How much the challenge before us is facing us, the more important thing is that leave thinking in tribal way and tribal dominance. Give the nation the opportunity and allow the citizen to decide what's the best required for us South Sudanese to deliver the South Sudan that we have struggled for. Let's prove the Arabs wrong, that we're able to govern ourselves, because the argument Arabs usually used to have that South Sudanese does not know how to govern themselves. When you start embracing tribalism over others, that's where we're proving the Arabs right. It's a high time, I would like to say, wherever you are, whatever single word you issue, your word may be one of the words that nail down the foundation of the peaceful and stable South Sudan. Challenges are there. Let us continue dialogue. Let's talk to each other, because talking and speaking to each other make us build sense for the nation we want. Let us all remain blessed. The flag of South Sudan is above any interest. We can't undermine that flag. That flag is there with the purpose, with the interest, with the struggle. All of you be blessed wherever you are. Thank you very much. We'll try our level best back home to maintain peace and stability, to prevail above every wrong thinking, every evil thinking. Thank you. God will bless us all.
Thank you so much, Edmund Yakani. Appreciate your presence and your commitment. As a citizen of Republic of South Sudan, you have been there for us all the time. I got a brother here, Chankwa there, Nyatung Ngong, Gat Nyamirian.
My friend, this name.
What a long name. You start testing us. You came in the last minutes of conclusion.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I cannot deny you. That's why I just accepted you to come in. I think you have understand when we are giving the final remarks. We are
That's
finishing.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you give us the real?
No,
I totally understand. I do understand that you are at your last point of presentation. Unfortunately, I was going to join you earlier. I was on the chat room with Brother Madid, and I was having problem coming in because of the the option of YouTube and Facebook. Unfortunately, it did not allow me to join you earlier.
Sorry.
Yes, I could have probably contributed in the topic. I was also delighted in listening to all the views and opinions of our South Sudanese citizens on the social media. So my coming here, if I would have joined earlier, I would have probably elaborated much on what is actually taking place. But it is also commendable that our brother Edmund Yakani have mentioned some few points, although some of them are contrary to what is happening. Also, we have to actually express our gratitude for spending time talking to us in regard to the agreement. I'm one of the agreement conscious. I'm always conscious about the agreement, especially on this platform. For example, years ago or a couple of years ago, we've been talking much on the implementation of the agreement. And if you guys will remember, Madid will remember very well, I always say that, the success of any implementation of the agreement will depend on the party's political will to implement the agreement. If any of the party choose not to be in the same spirit we will find it always hard to implement the agreement. And that is exactly what we have witnessed in the last 2 years or 3. To support what I have heard from my brother Edmund, we all agree that we have agreement, which it is also here with me. I have the document itself, and I always try to acquaint myself with what is written and explained in the document. Unfortunately, we South Sudanese, we fall short of the full implementation of this agreement. Why? Perhaps you have different explanation as to myself, but simply I can just give an answer that is so short. The reason as to why we are not seeing the full implementation of this agreement is because there are still agitators down there. There are still people that are Thomases down there that don't want to accept and implement this agreement. Perhaps you, Edmund, you might have come across people like that in South Sudan that are also leaders and that are working underneath to make sure that this agreement is not achieved in the frame time. Now the question is, if you understand, and you said you are an activist, and I have seen your signature or your initial on the document. If you are part of the peace agreement, as you have alluded to, today you have a chance, or you had a chance to come and talk to the people of South Sudan. What I would have expected from you is to be vividly clear on which party to the agreement that is actually impeding the smooth implementation of this agreement. Because as you have said, you are part of this agreement from the initial process. Up to now, you cannot run away from claiming responsibility of where and how it went wrong. So now, if we, the people of South Sudan, would ask you as an activist to be honest and stop being biased, or instead of you giving us biased statement, be vividly clear to us and tell us exactly which party, according to your research, according to your self expression, just like you have said, which party is it that is making it hard for us to achieve the ultimate prize of this peace? I would have loved you to express that fully so we can understand, because now we have this sort of things that we call double blame game, where we just come here on the social media or any other newsrooms and we say, oh, the party to the agreement are not working hard to implement the peace process, the peace agreement. But we are failing to pinpoint which party is it that is making it hard for us to achieve the peace or to implement the peace? Because unless we do that, Brother Edmund, we are not going to see this peace succeed in South Sudan. Because now there are people who are working hard to destroy this agreement with their own ideas, but you guys are failing to mention them. I don't know, are you guys scared of Blue House or you are scared of what? Because if that is so, then what you are preaching is wrong. Because you are coming to tell me now that, oh, SPLM-IO has got a problem, oh, SOA has got a problem, or all the other parties have got a problem. But in reality, when we look at what is happening on the ground, there is a party to the agreement, and to my knowledge, the former Tigonu, or the former Tigonu, which is spearheaded by Salva Kiir, is wholly responsible. Why? Because Salva Kiir is a president of the republic. Okay, you cannot compare someone who is a president and someone who's just a party to the agreement. So the president must always spearhead the change campaign so that the rest of the people will also continue. So now you as an activist, be very clear to us. This is the point that I want to come and tell you before you leave. Although I would love to touch more, I would have been pleased enough if you would have told us, look, Party A has got a problem here and there. Party B has got a problem here and there, but the percentage are not the same. The last point I would like to mention, and I hope you will answer it as you conclude, is a point on this agreement, because this is the document. Okay. If you look at this agreement, there are so many chapters. We have chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all they have, tangible evidence that should be implemented if we want a lasting peace in the country. There should never be shortcut to this agreement. You know it very well because you have said you are part of this agreement. Any party that wants us to use shortcuts to reach to what their goals are, it is just a shortcut for now, but it is not a full lasting and durable peace for the people of South Sudan. For example, now we have listened earlier the speech of President Salva Kiir. And to my dismay, when I was listening to some of the question that you were asked by some of the so-called supporters, because I have heard some of the supporters proudly mentioning that to us, that I am a supporter of Salva Kiir. And they were asking you questions. To me, those questions, you should not even have answered them, but you are a really good person. Why? Because people should not be asking you questions that they know the answers. What do I mean by that? For example, someone was asking you which chapter should be implemented first and which chapter should not be implemented. According to this agreement, we have a really well organized chapters from top to the bottom. Now, if you are telling me that my name is Simon, if you are telling me, Simon, let us jump chapter 1, but let us go and concentrate on chapter 6. Now, what are you telling me, brother Edmund? You are telling me that there are things that you don't like in chapter 1 that you don't want to deal with at first, but let us go and tackle the easy one from the back. You see? Now, this is what is actually impeding the implementation of the agreement, because there are parties to the agreement, and these parties are the one led by Salva Kiir. They don't want to implement, the security matrix, because they don't want to make sure that security apparatus in South Sudan are equalized and transformed. But they want to jump to what we call national dialogue. How can you bring national dialogue before you have the security in the country? How can you bring elections to the people before you have security in the country? So now let me conclude by saying this. The problem, I'm just concluding, brother. The problem with our people is that they don't want to call a spade a spade. They want to call a spoon a spade and a spade a spoon. The problem with the implementation of this agreement is because a party to an agreement does not want to flow with the arrangement of this peace process. Thank you very much.
I thank you so much. Chankwa Nyatungong.
Are you not a South Sudanese?
I am.
Okay, and if you are a South Sudanese, you should be able to pronounce my name, because I can pronounce your name.
Yeah, your name is Chankwa Nyatungong. Nyatungong.
No, not Ngong. There's no Ngong in Tognas.
Continue.
Okay, got Nyamiran. Go ahead. the longest.
That's all right, brother. It's okay, bro.
So can I come and answer you?
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Come on, come in, Edmund. Yes?
Yeah.
I want to say something to Salva.
Who is that?
I want to say something to Salva.
Guys, mine of my time also is running late.
There is,
Okay, just give Edmund time, and then we can continue with the rest.
Yeah, thank you.
Say one thing, and then from there, Salva will go with it. This is a very good thing.
No. Aliabai, just stand by. Let Edmund just answer him. We have already came to conclusion from the clubhouse. We were almost finished anyway. It's just only if our brother came up, that's why he was having a trouble coming in. That's why I gave him this chance. So I cannot go back to clubhouse again. I've already said bye-bye to all of you. Just listen to his, we have already listened to him. We need to listen to Edmund, how he's responding. Well, thank you so much. Be patient. Edmund, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. First, I like those words, be patient and let's be tolerant. First, I'd like to say thanks to my brother on your questions and your sincerity and your honest position that you have expressed. And that's how dialogue embraces better building of consensus and sense in terms that you have raised. And as you said, yes, I would like to confirm that, yes, I'm part of the agreement. And I don't know if you realized from the beginning when I was doing the analysis and I was making my comments, maybe what might have missed you is the naming. But I've used this. If you go to the agreement, if you open this agreement, look at Article 1.5.1. In that particular agreement, there's Article 1.5.1. It used the phrase of the terminology presidency. And I'd like you to pick that word of the presidency. Yes. Then read that article together with Article 1.9.6.1. There's Article 1.9.6.1. And that article tells about the functionality or the term of reference of the mechanism called presidency, which is chaired by the president, by the first vice president, and the other vice presidency.
That's correct.
And that's a mechanism where if we want to know a national political interest for the genuine implementation agreement, it's decision made in that mechanism. And that mechanism is chaired by the president. And the president sits in that mechanism on behalf of what is called the IG, the incumbent government. So the call for the meeting of the presidency is called by the person who head the presidency, which is the Excellency, the president, who sit on behalf of the incumbent government. And if you look at the definition of the incumbent government is composed of SPLM-IG, SPLM-IO under Taban Deng, and then other political parties and the National Alliance that define the word incumbent government. So the president sits on their behalf in the presidency mechanism. So if you are to ask for the center of political will to deliver the agreement, the center of the political will is determined by the person who drives the machinery of the presidency, the argument you have raised. And that is where the problem is, that the presidency is not holding its meetings as regularly. Why? Because the presidency is supposed to generate the culture of what we call decision is reached through consensus. So nobody who is sealed to the party will take any unilateral decision.
Correct.
And that's why the presidential decree for reconstituting the command structure was unilateral. And that's why I say no, this is a unilateral decision because we have not reached consensus, because it's supposed to be a decree generated from the meeting of the presidency.
That's correct.
That's what we call the spirit of the agreement. Which this spirit of the agreement is not in function. Why? The spirit of the agreement is not in function because there is a mistrust from the person head the presidency with the rest of the presidency members, and not all of them is in particular with the first vice president. And there's an indicator. If you look at the interview of His Excellency President, which I'm so disappointed as a president, when he was interviewed by the Kenyan TV, and where he say work is unpredictable, and even the journalist went further, asked him if Gering come and find you messing up the country. He said even Gering knows work is unpredictable, which for me, from a head of state, is not something that I wish to be there, because he is the head of the nation and he takes responsibility over that. So
that's true.
What I'd like to say is that the first person to be blamed is a person who hates the mechanism of the presidency. And he's supposed to call for the regular presidency. And good enough, one thing that I'm impressed today is that at least president have said that sustained dialogue will help them implement the agreement. And by sustained dialogue, for me, refer back to is make the mechanism prescribed by Article 1.9.6.1 to be functional, so that at least you don't make a unilateral decision. You reach consensus there as a political leaders of various parties, and you tell the nation, we have agreed. Even if you do the Raila way and Quebec, where Raila and Quebec take a tea, and Raila comes out and say, we are in consensus building while they're taking tea and you want to mislead the nation. But at least you can come and question that you are inside the tea. Why don't you contradict when he's making, you reach consensus? And then you can hold any member of the president accountable that when he say you are there and you're quiet, why don't you contradict what he said? That means you have given in. So for me, the whole strength of taking this country from violence or from the current situation to a peaceful country, it is when the function of the presidency, when the presidency mechanism function, and that one does not need any external player. We don't need any Kawaja, we don't want any religious leader to come in. If they take that responsibility and use the presidency mechanism to build consensus, they can sort out difference, by the way. I can hate you, you can hate me, we can disagree with you, you can disagree with me, but as we talk to each other, we can build consensus for the overall best interest of why we need to exist as South Sudanese. That's one of the problems that I'd like to answer that you say. And that's why the shortcuts, it means what? The shortcut is if you paralyze that mechanism not work, is a shortcut. Whatever action you are doing outside the presidency is a shortcut, as you say. And normally shortcuts.
Thank you very much for touching that. And before you continue, let me just now add this question. The issue of using shortcut is because someone choose not to follow the line and the conduct of the agreement, right?
Yes.
So now, as an activist and someone who is a signatory to the agreement,
yes,
what should you tell us now as the people of South Sudan?
Yes, my message is this. My message I have to tell you and the rest of the people who are listening in this particular platform that the president have the primary responsibility. By the way, regardless of putting him as IG, as a president, as a person, as a president, he have the primary responsibility to drive the car through the presidency mechanism to a right track.
Correct.
Regardless if behind him there's a spoilers, because as a president have the responsibility to discipline the spoilers around him. Because the word IG is not only SPLM. The word IG is inclusive of the others. So if the others,
that's absolutely
exactly. So it is his responsibility as a president to discipline anybody under his structure by saying there's a mechanism called presidency. I can't make any alteration to the provisional agreement. The best way is that the decision of the presidency is overriding decision over everything. And actually, by the way, if the president's decision can extend the agreement or not, cannot extend the agreement. So the question is that the president in person, in the seat, we're not hating him as a person, as His Excellency Salva Kiir Mayardit. No, we're holding him accountable because of the seat of the presidency, which anybody can jump there, regardless of him, regardless of his ethnicity. So he have the primary responsibility as a president and the presidency to put things right. So my message to the South Sudanese is that if we are to blame anybody for the failure of the agreement, we blame the head of the presidency mechanism plus the members of the presidency. That's what I would like to put across the board, that until you have the will in the presidency to deliver the agreement by the head of the presidency, we have nowhere to head anywhere. This one. Two, the culture of selective implementation agreement does not help. We can't embrace a selective way like implement chapter 2, go to chapter 1, go to chapter 3, leave chapter 4, come to chapter 5. But the problem with chapter 2, is that chapter 2 is supposed to build a unified security force that does not pay allegiance to anybody. Does not pay allegiance to president, does not pay allegiance to vice president, does not pay allegiance to anybody. It becomes, if any one of them misbehave with sovereignty of the country, peace and security of the country, the security is supposed to discipline them. And that's where the confusion is, that chapter 2, if we don't implement it rightly, even if we implement from chapter 1 up to the end smoothly, any slight mistake in chapter 2 can take us back to square one. And because chapter 2 is supposed Chapter 2 is also meant to dismantle our ethnic political ideology that want to rule with the country. It's supposed to say a soldier pay allegiance to the constitution and to the flag and to the national anthem. Does not pay any allegiance to any party, to any leader, to any elite. That is what's supposed to be. So where is the problem here? If you ask me in this platform.
Okay, network is coming in.
He's in Juba, right?
Yeah, he's in Juba.
Yeah, maybe his network has been cut off.
Ah, no. It's a whole country. It's a whole country.
Yeah, I think he got issue with the network.
Yeah,
but again, to be honest, let me just say thank you for allowing me this opportunity, and I'm very sorry for dragging you on. Hopefully, next time we can have a conducive environment where we can all start and finish at the same time. It was just very unfortunate that I came in late.
I understand.
Madid will understand, and he knows very well, because we've been at least conversing for an hour, before I came in. So I can just say, brother Isaac Tiang, I really appreciate your time and your courteous call on myself. Unless someone have got a question for me, if not, then we can just call it a day, and I'll log myself out. Those were the point that I wanted to pinpoint on the previous speaker.
All right, no worries. Thank you so much, Chankwath. I appreciate your presence. You did try, and you came in on time as well. Even if we are finishing, these are the importance of the nations. We cannot just neglect. We can accept anything coming in. Like now, you just go and dig in to the reality and.
Your voice is echoing.
Yeah, somebody is talking in the clubhouse, and I ran out of the power in the other. So I don't know whether you can hear him the other way, because the speaker which I have connected has run out of the power.
Power, okay.
Yeah, Aliabai. Eh?
They do have a poor profit, and what profit they come from the interest. Why all politicians against the government of South Sudan, against the country, they come from Bentiu? Is it because there are poor profit in Bentiu, and then we have some profit in Arab country? Thank you.
I can just answer this before Chankwas go on.
Can you reiterate the question first, because I could barely hear him?
Yeah, the question is about the. How can I put this?
No, it's okay. It's all right. We are South Sudanese. Don't be shy.
About the prophets, he said Bantu is giving the prophets, which are negative one. Prophets, that's what he is focusing to, and these prophets, they are misleading the people of Bantu to believe in them, and that's what I can understand. That's the message he is talking about. Yeah. Kennedy.
No. Listen.
Yes.
Listen again. I said all Apanal politicians have become prophet to all Nuer.
So all Upper Nile politicians, they become prophets of Upper Nile.
Yes, and now we have a prophet from the whole Chati, from the Arab country. What is wrong on that?
Colleagues, can I conclude?
Yeah, you have to conclude.
Edmund is back, huh?
Yeah, my brother, it was a question of my modem. My modem internet goes off, so I have to quickly reload it. So I'd like to say I appreciate the dialogue that we are in now. And to be honest with you, we call a spade spade. Black, white. We don't dodge here and there. And that's why we also make sure that we take responsibility in leveling individuals versus their titles, whereby we don't hate a person, but we hold you accountable. For example, I can't hate you because of anything. If you take any responsibility, then I will hold you accountable because of your responsibility. So balancing that, I don't think that I'm biased. I don't think that I covered it up, and I don't think that we fear Blue House. We have been several times been warned, called, and we've been leveled. By the way, it depends on the statement you make. Embraces who? When the statement embraces other side, the level you are. You have been bought by the Jenkins of elders, becoming of Jenkins of elders. Today spoke to these guys, will say, you are no longer there. You have been bought by opposition. Sometimes they're told we're opposition from within, flying out of Juba and coming back in a flight. So with here, we use the flag of civil society to cover. But the reality is, we have to speak reality, and we have to talk to each other. And through our talks, we must build consensus that makes sense for bringing us together as a unity of purpose, because we wish to be together as citizens of one country, that we embraced a model case study. But escaping the reality is not an option, and it will never help us completely. We have to work with the reality, and that's why the South Sudan that we won, the words we have in our national anthem can impress. Otherwise, we are misleading ourselves, and we are misinforming ourselves, and we are heading nowhere. We keep on messing up. The reality is, the truth is the best pathway that we need to pick it up. Thank you very much. I was attempting to pronounce your name. It's too long, but I'll try to educate myself. I already written it down. So maybe one day we meet with you somewhere. When you ask me, I say, oh, I now educate myself. I have to learn that, because I have my long one. This was kind of alphabet. So, but be blessed, my brother. You should embrace the dialogue and telling the truth.
So, thank you, Edmund. Thank you so much. Time is not with us, or time is not for us today. So we'll catch up again next time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Edmund.
So
Isaac.
Yes.
Isaac, back to the prophet thing. What is Kennedy trying to say?
We will just go to the clubhouse. This is where we will go and answer all these things. There are connected to answer it here. Let's go to the club.
I know Kennedy. I know Kennedy very well. So we used to talk a lot back in the days on social media.
Mary Nibol Makir has answered him here. Simply answer is, I am not a prophet, period.
Yeah. No, that's okay. That's okay. You know, South Sudan has nothing to do with prophets. The reason as to why our country is in a mess has nothing to do with prophets. In fact, it's spiritual.
What he's trying to say is that all the politicians in Upper Nile, they just make a reference to Mundeng or other prophet that is say this thing will happen, and I might be, or I will be the person that the prophet was prophesying. So that's what I can suggest behind it. And now it's really, I've been here up to now, it's 3 a.m. in the morning. So I left with only just 2-3 hours to sleep and wake up, pick up, take my kid to school.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right, brother. It's all right. I really appreciate your time. Let's just end it up there. Nibul already gave the answer. So prophet has nothing to do with our conflict in South Sudan. It is our leaders and our tribal mindset. So if Kennedy wants to talk about prophet, let him bring a show, and we can tackle the issue of prophet.
No, we will continuing that show in the clubhouse. Lake State Media Clubhouse is open. Will not be closed. It's only the stream yard will close down here. But the clubhouse is good. It's something that you can even lie on your bed and you talk on the phone. Yeah.
You know this Kawaja, they know how to eat the minds of South Sudanese now. They gave us another clubhouse that is like eating banana on the bed. All right.
Yeah.
God bless you, brother. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Murkamtamina,
young love, I give him that thing. But your leg is staying in Panchi America. Panji door, the Banaban, but your leg is staying in Panchi America. Panji door, the Banaban, walk on your leg, Kankaro, what on a watching. Koga level leg, year, wow, very leg. Panda with ya, Panchi America. Panya, Dwalabano, Chingatonga, Pandon, could you ever buy a check out? Papu Panda, Jiro, what ya be, Dwalabanting. Stand up Panchi America, Panji Dwal, Banaban, Panta leg stand up Panchi America, Panji Dwal, Banaban, walk on your leg, Kankaro, what on a watching, Koga level leg, Juer, wow, very leg, Panda with ya, Panchi America, Panya Dwalabano, Chingatongo Pandon, could you ever buy a check out? What to Panda Juer, what ya be, Dwalabanting.